level of cash flow.
Right.
Like very big trouble.
Right.
Nobody teaches people how.
No.
And it's pretty easy.
And the problem, I'm sure you get into this, the problem that I'm aware of, I'm not hard stuff, right? They don't cover their hard costs, their soft costs, right?
There's no concept of
Right.
cost.
And a lot of times they're selling stuff at a loss. You know it. You know.
They have to have it all unit cost.
Yeah. That's a hard concept for people to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good to go. Good morning, everybody. Let's call our budget meeting of the Tillamook County Budget Committee to order. Today is Thursday, April 11, 2024. So we have a full day before us today, and as I said yesterday, I'll work on a little break here in the morning. We can't go this steady, even though the treasurer may want us to. We'll find a couple of minutes there, but I'll begin on the agenda. Anyone on the committee would care to offer any comments or remarks, and then I'll go to the treasurer and ask her as well. Anything you thought of in the middle of the night we need to take up, or? I guess not. So Sean, did you have anything you'd like to bring before us before we start the presentations?
I do not have anything to bring up.
Nothing. Okay, so now what happened to?
She was actually grabbing Cassandra. She was planning on coming in here just in a few minutes because we were on at 9:15. I will tell you, I did read through some research. We did not change our insurance deductibles over the last few years. They remain the same, so that's something I'll bring up to Cheryl when I meet with her.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, since we have a few minutes, can I ask a question? When we get to the part where we start to look at the end, how are we going to do that? Do you have some kind of a master spreadsheet or something we can look at to sort of start managing that? Or we just sort of willy-nilly?
Not willy-nilly. We can bring up the dashboard. We can put some assumptions of.
Oh, it's a dashboard kind of situation. Okay.
We can do that with our assumptions, yeah.
Okay.
And see where it's going to bring us.
The way we've done it in the past is we can quickly go through most of the special funds and see if there's anything that needs to be revisited. And there might be one I'm thinking of maybe the TLT and I think the first one we heard of the tourism group. Maybe there's something there, and maybe others. And it seems to me there was one that was out of balance. Was there?
TLT.
The TLT itself. But.
TLT itself is out of balance.
Okay, so we might revisit that first, and then we can pretty quickly go through the special fund. For example, Parks, I think, presented a balanced budget, correct? And so, there may not be any issues there that you'd want to talk about, and so that just moves along. And then when we get to the general fund, and you'll know quite a bit more after you hear the presentations today, again, those we're out of balance. I think Sean said somewhere around 4.3 million or something like that. So essentially, we're going to make some recommendations that go forward how to recover or either enhance revenue, which is more difficult than saying these certain expenses then need to be deferred or pushed forward or eliminated or whatever we want to do. Okay. And here comes the treasurer from yesteryear.
Eons ago.
So with that, then be thinking about those things as we go forward. And today you'll hear from a couple of, or at least three of the larger, more significant, meaning the health department and community development, and then the sheriff's office as well. So those all are very impactful. So let's go to now tax and assessment. And we've got the key people from that department, two of whom are retiring. So I'll turn it over to Denise, and would you do like the others have done, is introduce these three and maybe talk just for a moment about your background, their background, and the fact then that two of you are pulling the pin and leaving. So you,
Pulling the
That's
pin.
an interesting.
yeah,
Doug's got a lot of interesting little, yeah.
I
Forget the
heard
one
that
yesterday,
somewhere.
but
That-
we had one
That one
yesterday
stuck
too.
with me, but, so we are losing two really key, valuable, longtime people, and, this other, lady on the end is running for that position, as is another, good employee in the department, so, there is a race, that will be on the ballot, or it's already on the ballot. But they'll talk to you about tax and how that works, but first, would you, Denise, just talk about yourself and your key people background, so especially for the new people?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm Denise Vanderkoovering, the elected Tillamook County Assessor. I have Lori McKibben, she's my Chief Appraiser, and Cassandra Larson, the Chief Deputy. I started at Tillamook County a little over 24 years ago answering the phones. I felt fortunate that I was able to stay home with my kids when they were little, but then when they got to be in school, it was time for me to do something. I answered the phones, then a tax job came available and I was selected for that position. Then about a year later, an appraiser job was open and I was able to get to do that position because I had been to real estate school and had my real estate license. And so I moved over to the appraisal section probably about when we got our new computer system, Helion. And so I was able to, become appraiser 1, appraiser 2. I also did the sales data analyst job that I loved. That's what I miss. I mean, that was a fun job, seeing all the sales in the county, and then we use those sales to trend the values up or down depending on what's happening in the market. So I'm not running again. I'm not saying I'm retiring because I'm going to keep doing something. I think it's time for new blood to come in. When the prior assessor decided to retire, I applied for that position and was selected by the Board of Commissioners at that time. And then I've been elected 3 times, and it's time for some new blood, and I'm looking forward to it. And the office is in good hands. We've got a lot of good employees. I'm so thankful for the people that we do have, and I feel confident that they will carry on and do a great job.
Thank you. Do you
So
want
not
to?
exactly pulling the pin.
I'm going to do something. I'm a worker, so that's what I'm going to do. It's time to just do something else and relax. And
So the other two, would you just give your names and what you do briefly as well for benefit of our new people?
Sure. I'm Lori McKibben. I'm the Chief Appraiser for Tillamook County. I've been doing that since about 2011. As you stated, I'm going to be retiring this year, so I'm working on my 30th year. So it's been a pleasure. It really has.
Cassandra Larson, Chief Deputy Assessor and Tax Collector. I started at the county in 2002, like Denise, answering the phones. I came back from college with a degree and got in as an office specialist 1, I believe. It was really hard to get in at the county in 2002. So got in and then moved right across to residential appraiser, became a state of Oregon registered appraiser, did that for 15 years before moving over and becoming the Chief Deputy Assessor and Tax Collector. And I'm responsible for all of the billing and tax collection of our 29,000 properties. Amongst a lot of other things.
I think there are 15 people in the office now, 15 FTE.
17.
17. Okay, and then 2 key people are leaving, and so with that, I'll ask them just to go through their presentation. And by the way, if you think your properties are overvalued, your taxes are too high, it's these people right here. But what they do, and they'll explain this, I'm sure, but essentially all the real property valuations are set, and they follow some of the laws that have, the newer ones, measures 5 and 47 and 50 that have come into play over the last years. And so they administer the whole thing. They deal with properties that are foreclosed, and they can talk about that as they go. So These are the people that generates money, the money or the tax base for the entire county, not just the county itself, but the schools and all the special districts. So it's an important part of what goes on. So with that, go through your,
Okay, so I'm gonna start it off. So we have the first slide. Okay, so this slide is the Tillamook County real market value and the assessed value history. So what I want to point out is that from 2022 to 2023, the total real market value of all the taxable property in Tillamook County went from 11.15 billion to 12.6 billion, which is a 12.91% increase or 1.44 billion increase. Small number.
Yeah.
The assessed value went from 6 billion to approximately 6.3 billion. That is a $259 million increase or 4.3%. The chart below shows a 20-year history of real market value and assessed value. You can see where the bubble hit in 2006 and 7, where the recession happened and we crashed. And then when we started climbing back up out of it, we never really thought we would see value as high as we did in 2007, but as you can see, here we are, higher than we ever imagined. Does anybody have any questions on this graph, or would you like to take a little bit of time to look at it? Okay. So this next slide is who pays the tax, and by that we mean what type of property in Tillamook County is our biggest source of revenue. This year we levied $73.4 million in property tax. Residential valuation accounts for 78% of that. Our second highest, 7% is industrial and utilities. I'm sorry, commercial and industrial and utilities. And then after that, 7% is farm and forest valuation. And after that, we have business, personal property, and other miscellaneous types of tax rolls.
it's interesting to note there that farms, all the farms we have and what Tillamook County is known for is actually not the key contributor to this particular, well, the way of showing it here, as you see, it's a relatively small part.
Mm-hmm.
I can have that.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on that. So, farm and forest receive a special assessment or a reduced value. That's why that they contribute. Because you're right, it is a large number of acreage, but through the state of Oregon, they do receive a special reduced rate.
Have you ever heard any move at the legislature to change that? I know the Farm Bureau and others are pretty protective of that, but is anything happening?
Not in my time.
What kind of things go under miscellaneous?
So we have things like mineral rights. If we have any of those, let's see. It's I just looked at this yesterday too because I thought maybe somebody's going to ask about that. That's about all I have for you right now. I'm not pulling anything out. Do you know some other miscellaneous?
Yeah, that's the smaller contributors of the different types of properties in the county. So it could be like the drainage districts. That's the number that would meet what is at that isn't in any of those other categories. Drainage districts.
It's also our unbuildable properties.
And buildables, the smaller value that just unique properties.
Something like wetlands and stuff, would that be there? Or?
Could be. It's unbuildable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our recreationals, golf courses, things like that. Yeah.
By the way, I really appreciate you printing these out because a lot of times the presentations you can't read the fine print. So thank you for that.
Sure. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So out of the 73.4 million levied in tax, where does that money go? How is it divided up amongst the taxing districts? Number one is our education and schools at 53%. Number two is Tillamook County's permanent rate. That is just the permanent rate, not to be confused with adding in our road bonds or veterans levy. That's at 13%. Our fire districts account for 9% of it. Our library, which has a bond and a local option, is 6%. And next, our cities, our city of Tillamook, Garibaldi, and Bay City account for 4%. The rest is divvied up amongst water and drainage districts, veterans levy, road bond, and urban renewals.
And just for clarification too, in the schools and education, that does include our 3 school districts plus Willamina, the little bit of Willamina School District, the community college, and the ESDs. Willamette ESD and Northwest Regional ESD.
That's an educational service district. Some of you would know that, but MJ might not. You keep going.
Okay. Don't want to rush it.
They own some that is donated to them, and then they'll turn around and sell it usually.
But otherwise, they lease from the college, the building that they're in, out on 3rd Street.
Okay, so this chart is the prior fiscal year. So we certify our values generally around October 1st, and we send out 29,000 to 30,000 statements by October 25th. So what this is showing is that the very first part of the chart where it says October 22nd, that's where statements were sent out. Excuse me. And then by November 15th, that's when you can pay in full to get the 3% discount. We have collected almost 90% of that levied amount. So our staff is very busy from October to the end of November. Excuse me. If a property owner doesn't want to pay in full and get that 3% discount, they can pay in thirds. Those are due February 15th and May 15th, or they can pay in 2/3, get a 2% discount on November 15th, and then pay the rest on May 15th. This next chart shows that on February 15th, our collection rates go up to 94%, and then by May 15th, the final due date, it goes up to 97%.
Question? Why do we get a 3% discount?
It's statute. Yeah. So if we wanted to change that, we'd have to go through legislation, and it's the whole state of Oregon. Yeah. One of the benefits of the 3% discount is that we get the money up front, and the districts can do their work throughout the year. So it's an incentive.
It also leaves 2.19 million on the table.
Yeah.
I think there's been some conversation at the state level about whether that should be changed, could be changed. So there's a conversation that's yet to come with the tax assessors and the Department of Revenue about the CAFA grant. And so there is some work at the state level trying to say, okay, we know that we're not adequately funding our assessor departments. Is there a way that we can add to that? Is this percentage that we're giving off, maybe that's something we shouldn't be doing? So there are some conversations. So keep your eyes to the state for that.
Thank you, Erin.
You know, and I know of at least one where it is not. Other states, do they have a similar discount structure, or do you know?
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find
Well,
out
in
out of the
Washington
state.
State, you can pay 50%. I think they divide it twice. You pay in April and again in October, but there's no discount if you chose to pay it all. So I would guess most people pay it because there's no incentive to pay early. so you float your money elsewhere and then pay it off. And so this, I know the rationale for this, and I've heard that out of Salem as well, is you get the money up front, and even if there's 3% discount, you've got that money to put to work, and maybe you earn more than 3%, or maybe you do, as she said, put a project underway or something like that. But I know, as Commissioner Scar pointed out, I know there are conversations in Salem, or have been, to eliminate that. So where it goes, I don't know, but they're doing exactly what is done by the other 35 counties.
Yeah, the conversations about that have been going on for years, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Still are, which doesn't bode well.
This next chart is our payment processing analysis. This is 25 working days. It's that October date through the end of November. How does our money come in? How are people paying? I like to analyze the number of receipts versus how the actual amount paid. So the number one way that people are paying us is through Lockbox. That's our payment processing center. They're writing out checks and they're putting it in the mail. The second way is through data exchange. That's mortgage files. They're on a loan and their lender's paying. The third way is in-house. That is what we are doing at our desk in our counter. That's 15%. And then the fourth way is electronically, which is website, phone, and bill pay.
I think I learned last year that Lockbox is the most efficient for your office.
Well, website would be if they could pay with debit card. Anything electronic is going to be the most efficient, but it's the fee that people hold back from, and so then they write out a check.
So if they do use a debit card or credit card, we collect the full amount, and then the fee that they would pay, like the bank, is on top of that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
It's separated out, so they pay their tax, and then they pay a $3.95 fee for a debit card, and then our payment vendor takes that. And credit card is 2.49% on whatever you're paying.
I can't believe 23% of people actually walk in the door with their checks.
Yeah. Well, we have a great staff. They like to see us.
Maybe we're being too nice, too friendly. No such thing.
Yeah, a lot of people like to have a receipt. They like to get that receipt. I paid my tax, and you know.
That's a tradition for people.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Would you, one of you, take about 2 minutes and explain the property tax limitations that have been in effect now for some years, if you wouldn't mind, particularly for our newest member who's from California, and not that we don't hold that against her either. But Oregon has a bit of a unique system. It was following, and then there was a Measure 5, and then a correction under Measure 47, and then Measure 50 that locked in some things a number of years ago. Would one of you speak to that for a couple of minutes so everybody understands how this system works?
Well, and that first chart was probably the best one that shows that analysis. Yeah, Measure 5 was the limitation of the tax the tax rate for general government cannot be more than $10 per thousand of RMV compared to the rate times the assessed value. It was $10 for general government and $5 for schools. And then Measure 47 and Measure 50 was the 3% limitation. So before that, we were basically taxed on our real market value. And so it created a maximum assessed value. So we've got your real market value. Then at that time, it was the real market value minus 10%, and then that was limited to increase 3% a year. Then the lower of those two is the assessed value that the tax rate is applied to. So that first chart kind of showed where market values have gone like that. Your assessed value has pretty much just creeped up. So it is the maximum assessed value that's limited to the 3% increase.
And most people, unless you're in the business like any of us or do this frequently, they don't understand it, even though it was voted in. And it's fairly complex. And the downside of that is they say, well, you know, somebody's got an oceanfront property and it's worth a certain amount of money, but on the tax rolls, it's substantially less. Why is that? Why aren't you taxing these rich people that have all these ocean view homes? And the answer is because of these limitations that have been in place for some time. Now, if you build a brand new home and you come on the tax rolls, that's a different matter. You'll come in at that value, correct? But then it falls in, you know, well, I guess where I'm headed, this is really a complex system. And it's hard to understand. You can argue that it's unfair, that, but it was put in by the voters. Therefore, it has to be changed by the voters. And that hasn't been much of an issue for a long time. Well, it's always an issue, but it hasn't gone to the ballot again. So these folks and every other county has, we have to employ mathematicians or it won't get done, I guess is what I'm saying.
And we do have like the 10th lowest permanent rate in the state. So that was one point I wanted to make. And also, Measure 50, you know, our tax system is not perfect, but it really has helped most of it. Again, that first chart that showed the assessed value, the market value, you know, we used to be taxed on our market value, and now we're not. So for the majority of people, Measure 50 really was a good thing to limit the 3% for us taxpayers. Now for us governments, maybe not so much. It created a stable funding source, but you know, we know most things have gone at more than 3%. And we do get more money every year because of the new construction, remodels, additions, subdivisions. So it's not like we're only getting 3%. So there is a lot to it, and it's complicated.
And I think the treasurer ran it, and we typically get about 4% when we were doing our work last year trying to estimate. So I think with new construction, yeah, because of growth, that typically it grows at about 4%.
The assessed value.
Assessed value, yeah. Therefore, what we collect on.
Right.
Ken?
So am I to understand that if there's a remodel or new construction, it revalues the property at the real market value and then follows the assessed value going
So
forward?
I can answer that for you. So what happens is we will do a calculation on just the value of the remodel itself. It's not a complete reset of the property. And so, and to answer your question, Doug, about if someone builds a new house, you aren't taxed on 100% of your real market value. There is a process that we go through in a calculation. It's called the changed property ratio, and that's to bring new construction in line with unchanged properties in the county. And I'm just going to say, generally speaking, it's somewhere around 50% right now. So that real market value compared to the maximum assessed value.
I appreciate what Denise said about us being the 10th lowest, because the part of the problem with Measure 5, which was in the 80s, I don't remember which year exactly, but it was in the 80s, is that wherever the government taxing rate was, it locked it in there permanently. So some counties and cities have the advantage of, if they had a higher tax rate at the time, then they continued on that rate growing by 3%. So we're locked in where we are. And a number of times people have come to me and said, why are there all of these special districts and all of these things on our tax bills? Why do you just keep tacking more things on? And the answer is that we can't raise the tax rate. So if something's needed for fire district or whatever, you know, a bond, if something's needed, it has to be a bond or a levy, because that's the only way to pay for it. So, and I've had people say, well, you know, if the county can't operate at this funding level, or do you have an appetite to raise the tax rate? But we can't. So it's, you know, but also I agree with Denise that for people paying taxes, knowing that your taxes are going to go up approximately 3% a year is a huge advantage. So we just have to live within those parameters.
And this has also been talked about at the state level. I think it was maybe 3 years ago. It was right when I started the Association of Oregon Counties in partnership with the League of Oregon Cities, went out and did some polling to see if there was any type of an appetite among the public to maybe take something back to the voters to try to address the tax shortfalls that so many cities and counties are feeling. And the polling was absolutely not. So it went nowhere, right? Which isn't surprising. But I think, there's that narrative to Commissioner Bell's point, which is we are actually raising taxes. We're just doing it in bonds and levies instead of across the general rate.
And see, for benefit of our newest, well, all three are new, but our California person.
Doug, can you stop saying that? You're just
All
picking
right.
on poor MJ.
Well, just the system here, we're one of, I think it's only 7 states without an overall sales tax. And so governments are funded in Oregon at the state level, basically the income tax and lottery and quite a few other things. And then counties and cities typically do property tax. And there's always a move to try and expand that and change it, but that's held firm for quite some time. And so we don't have that other input of sales tax. And so property taxes, because they were escalating at a very high rate, just as California did, and that's how you got, was it Measure 11 or Proposition 13. So we had the same thing that was called Measure 5 shortly after it was done in California, because it was becoming a burden, particularly to people who couldn't keep up with it for whatever reason, retired and so on. And so you can argue, is that good public policy or not, but it is what it is. And so we've been now, we, the county and other public agencies have learned to live within that and make it, do what they had to do. And like was said, if there's a capital need typically or something else, you go to the voters in another form. Like here in the county, we had a road bond, we have a jail bond, we had a bond issued for the library and maybe some other things. And then as we mentioned yesterday, the library itself is funded with a 5-year revolving serial levy. So you got all these moving pieces and parts, and Oregon has been criticized as being convoluted and, we've got a goofy system, but it is what it is, and the voters put it in place. But fortunately, we've got good people that can figure it out and do what needs to be done. So that's the explanation of why we have all these colored charts and things here. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so this chart is just the trends over the past 5 years and how people are paying. And what I want to highlight is that our lockbox, again, that's our payment processing center, that is down 10%. So where did that shift to? What are people doing? Well, the website has doubled in the last 5 years. I believe that's due to COVID. But also, we are doing more payments at the counter since 2 years ago. The counter has a 61% increase. That and data exchange, our mortgage companies, our lenders is up 13%. So more people are buying homes. That means we have more loans. Lori is going to talk about what happened in the market.
Okay, so a common question that I get a lot is what is happening in the market? And this data right here is August 1st, 21 through 7/31/22, because it takes us about a year to collect all the information, sort through it, get the good arm's length transactions, and then do our data analysis, which ends up culminating into about a 190-page ratio study that we send to the Department of Revenue. And as you know, they oversee everything that we do, and they make sure that we are following the rules that they have in place. So with that, I'll just say that the market is leveling out. And if you would refer to the chart here, there's a 10-year look back. So that average home prices countywide. Now this is sales. This is not our values, but this is what the sales did. And in 2013, you could see that the average home price countywide was $246,000 and change. And then in 2022, 10 years later, we're at $523,870. the improved residential sales volume countywide. So the sales numbers that you see over there, these again are the sales that we have determined are good arm's length transactions. In other words, they're not between family members, they're not under duress or things of that nature. We have just finished collecting all the information on our 2023 sales and have started the process of analyzing that data in preparation of the 2024 ratio study, which is due to the Department of Revenue July 1. So to dive a little deeper, and by the way, we have tons of data. So we're just giving you a little snapshot of things that you might be interested in. This particular chart ranges, I'll point you to the sales date there, 1/1/22 through 12/31/22. So each of those columns there, you can see a little bit of a breakdown year over the past 10 years for particular property types, oceanfront, ocean view, riverfront, and so on. We draw your attention to that average sales price again. Again, it's a different time frame, so it's slightly different. But you can see the growth that has happened. If you were purchasing an ocean view home in 2013, you could expect to pay around $400,000 and some for that. And if you're going to do that today, you're approaching $900,000, depending on the view. And we actually do grade those when we're out in the field. That's part of what we do.
And this, in summary, is a significant part of why they're housing difficulties in Tillamook County and lots of the Oregon coast. That, together with Oregon's land use laws, make affordable homes difficult, very difficult.
Well, especially given that the average price is now $540.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as affordable.
It's pretty safe to say everything's pretty much doubled.
Yeah, your best hope's to find a mobile home, it looks like, manufactured.
So this chart represents foreclosures. Now, these are related to bank foreclosures, not property tax foreclosures. So we do get this information through recordings through the clerk's office. And as you can see, they've been pretty low over the last few years, obviously related to the value of the properties in Tillamook County. They're not making it to foreclosure, short sales, or something else is going on. People are snapping up those properties.
And we started tracking this back when, in 2007, the market just stopped. The final quarter of 2007, the sales stopped. And of course, we lagged behind a little bit. But we thought this chart was interesting because by the time that, 2007 happened and we get to 2013, that was about the time that the banks were taking the homes back. And it was like hard to see all those coming through. So we started tracking it. Now, like we said, now there's no reason somebody's home should get foreclosed because they can sell it.
Okay, so this spreadsheet I like to show to you. Currently, I have 9 appraisers on staff. We are finally fully staffed. That's been a goal of ours for years now. It takes about 3 years once we hire a trainee to get to the point where they're working fairly independently. So it's a very time-consuming process because of a lot of the things that you all have talked about. There's a lot to learn with doing this work, and it's really important to us that we're doing a good job. So we put a lot of time and effort into the appraisers, and this chart is designed to show you, we've talked about what assessed value means, and this chart is going to show you how much each appraiser actually brings into the county. So if you go across each of those columns, you're going to see that assessed value, that total tax number that Cassandra was discussing, the $73.4 million in taxes. And then the rest of this is, we take an average of what the tax rates are, and then how much the work that the appraisers are doing, and specifically 2023 brought $140,492,000 of assessed value onto the rolls. and then that tax value, what that equals, and then I have it broken down by appraiser. So when you get to that per appraiser, that $182,000, that's not what the general fund gets. Because again, we're doing this work and Sean is sending this money out to all of these districts, right? So if you look at the bottom of this chart, you will see like at the bottom there that says 2019, 20,047. If you follow those colored cells up, that shows you what a new appraiser would have brought into the county in 2019, and then that 3% growth we talked about. So the idea of this chart is to show you, how that grows over a 5-year time. And then to the right of that, you see a row labeled CAFA, which is the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Grant, which we get every year from the state of Oregon. And per appraiser, we get $18,000 basically reimbursement for the work that we do. And so, based on the work that they do, plus the CAFA grant, within 5 years, an appraiser has paid for themselves and just continue to add additional value to the role.
Thank you for that. I remember 5 years ago when we asked for this, because it was like, it seems like these are the people that without them, we don't add value, we don't bring in more tax dollars, and our largest, unrestricted, if you will, revenue source is our tax revenue. So at that point, we didn't have a fully staffed assessor's office, and we were trying to find a way to grapple with and understand the value for each assessor that came on board. So thank you.
So does that, when you're saying they're paying for themselves, is that just salary or salary and benefits?
And benefits.
Okay. And then this other question, just try to hear it neutrally, even though it sounds like it might be charged. Does that mean that if people are going out appraising, that there's an incentive to increase appraisals?
An incentive for who?
The appraisers to
No.
look for.
No, there's no incentive.
Okay.
Not at all.
this was just a backside sort of analysis we asked for.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah.
If we could somehow put them on commission, then.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, if they made a commission off of it, yeah, you'd probably really, I mean, one thing that we've been really focusing on was trying to get into a reappraisal process. And it's just been so challenging because half of our staff are under 3 years experience, So we've got 4 appraisers and that we're really working hard to get trained up, and they're doing fantastic. And so I'm hopeful that maybe this might be the first summer that we can actually get out in the field and start doing some of that and get onto a cycle. But it's that having trained staff that's always the problem, and I would love to have, more appraisers because we could do more of that. But I tried to say, what can we get by with? And this is, for me, the bare minimum. And again, we're really going to try to get out there and start doing some of that reappraisal work. In fact, we're having some meetings about that with the staff and really collaborating on the best way to do that.
Well, there's the geography and accessing properties is difficult here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm a cyclist, and some of the encampments I see, they're not homeless encampments. They're people just living on the property.
Right.
You know what I mean? So accessing.
Yeah, exactly. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,600 permits that require our attention. So that's just new construction or partition plats, anything that DCD is issuing permits for, anything, the partitions and the lot lines that our surveyor, Mike Rice, is doing, that ends up in our office. So we have to maintain all of those changes that are going on the properties. And so that in itself is a big job to get done, and that's always our priority. And Cassandra and her staff do an excellent job tracking all of the deeds that take place in those address changes, so we make sure that people get their tax statement so that can get paid.
Could you talk about the appraisal cycle of how much is mathematical versus out in the field and actually walking the property?
So how much,
Well,
like
in
the
other words,
percentage?
you don't physically have somebody on every property every year. Some of it is trending, mathematical, and
Oh,
then
right.
some of it, someone's out in the field.
Right, so the appraisers spend, I'm gonna say on average, probably 1 day a week in the field, and the rest are in the office, processing that data. As far as the number of accounts, it's very minimal. Like, we haven't been to some properties in 20 years. So, you know, we'll get people saying, hey, why isn't my real market value? And say, oh, we're making our best effort here to get out there and do that. So we have in the neighborhood of 29,000 accounts. And so, you know, if we have 3,600 permits,
Is anything special or different done with STRs? If a residence is converted to an STR?
yeah, the short-term rentals, yeah. So we have been talking about that in our office. So what we need to have is data to say, you know, what the real market value is on that. Sometimes there are what we call exception events, which allows us to go beyond that 3% MAV growth. However, you know, those a lot of times are homes which have been already put on the roll. So unless there's a physical change to that, there might be a difference in real market value in what somebody would pay for that property if that short-term rental license rolls with the property. We just don't have that evidence yet. But yeah, I think it definitely could affect real market
I
value.
just, you know, depending on who you talk to or which court you're talking to at the time, is it a residence anymore or is it commercial property?
Mhm.
And I don't know if that, just changing it affects the tax rate.
Yeah, it hasn't as of yet,
Okay.
but we definitely have our eye on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an insignificant number of homes.
Right, it isn't. And you know, that short-term rental license has become more valuable. So,
But we are on mass appraisal, so you have to remember we're on a mass appraisal basis. So that data's gotta really jump out at us consistently, and we have to defend it to the Oregon Department of Revenue that house, all these homes definitely need to be higher or.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it is valuable, I don't hope I'm not going down a rabbit hole here, but like in Rockaway Beach, they just put a cap on, and the cap included transferability of the license. So I think when that house sells, there's an added value that goes with that. And they don't even have to use it as a short-term rental, the license attaches. And I think that increases the value to the detriment of people that don't have an STR license attached to their house. And I just hope that that's addressed somehow.
And personally, I agree with you. But these guys get sick of me saying what we do has to be supportable and defendable. We've got to defend what we do to the taxpayer. We might have to defend what we do to WAPTA. We might have to defend what we do to tax court. So that it's been a challenge, and we talk about it yearly, if not more, that I think there is that value also, but how do I extract that from the data?
so yeah, we have to have enough short-term homes that have short-term rental licenses sell in order to, you know, to analyze that. It's definitely on our radar though. We've been talking
It might
about
be
it.
difficult. I mean, how do you track that?
Well, we know which homes are short-term rentals. We actually get all of the permits that go through.
So you're able to match
We have an electronic
Okay.
download process that we get all of that information and tie it to the properties, yeah.
I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but as I've been taking notes here, I've heard terms from this side of the table talking about your work as difficult, challenging, complex, convoluted. I've heard you use terms like we need to be defendable. We have bare minimum staffing. We have people on our team with less than 3 years doing well, but we need to get them up to speed. And then I remember at the very beginning of this, we're talking about two of the highest, most experienced people on the team are, as Doug would say, pulling the pen. What keeps you up at night? Like how does this how does this, we're looking at $73 million plus worth of tax revenue coming into the county. It seems like it would be really, really easy to get this wrong. We're gonna talk about succession planning.
Right.
What's the most important thing about you when you're thinking about leaving?
So we have been focusing really hard, and Cassandra's going to touch on this a little bit in our next slide, but cross-training has been a major part of our succession planning. We've talked about it for years when we've been coming here, and part of getting the appraisal staff to the level that we have now was part of that planning. We do have at least 4 appraisers in our office that are extremely experienced, 18 plus years around that area. So I have full faith that they are very knowledgeable, and that's what lets me sleep at night, because it is a huge job. Cassandra is, has been co-managing with us. She knows her stuff. So I know that whatever role she's playing in our office, that will also be a continuity. She was worked in appraisal side and went over to tax side. So she's got a really broad knowledge, and so she's able to help that smooth transition. And again, tons of cross training, and I feel really good about that.
Thank you.
Do we have time for the conclusion?
Yeah,
Okay,
keep going.
Yes,
You're
Doug.
good here.
Doug's in charge of the clock.
go. I'll read this. Here we go. This year marks a significant milestone for us as our assessor Denise Van de Koevering and chief appraiser Lori McKibben are retiring. With a combined experience of 55 years between them, a wealth of knowledge is leaving our department. Although experience is irreplaceable, management has been preparing for this upcoming transition through extensive cross-training, open communication with staff, and keeping current on written procedures. Our goal in recent years was to ensure that at least 2 employees were trained in every major duty, including but not limited to sales ratio analysis, commercial and industrial valuation, exemptions, appeals both locally and at magistrate tax court level, software management, DOR annual reporting requirements, appraisal setup studies, business personal property valuation, tax collection, deed locating, ownership changes, records management, and role certification. We are pleased to report this effort has been successful, and we are committed to this ongoing process. We continue to monitor and assess continuing education costs annually. Upon certification by the state, appraiser trainees are required to finish 60 hours of technical continuing education within their first 2-year cycle. Subsequently, they must complete 30 hours of technical CE every 2 years. New managers are also required to complete 60 hours during their initial 2-year cycle, consisting of a mix of technical and management CE. Following this, managers are required to complete 45 hours of technical and management CE every 2 years. The average cost per credit hour ranges from $20 to $30 for International Association of Assessing Officers and Appraisal Institute classes. Managers also receive education credits for attending the Oregon Association of County Assessors and Tax Collector conferences. In the Assessment and Taxation Department, our roles are numerous and complex. Our goal is to value property, collect taxes, and to provide related information in a manner that merits the highest degree of confidence in our integrity, efficiency, and fairness. The collective and dedicated efforts of our department generate revenue for taxing districts which support public safety, health, education, and other essential services for the betterment of Tillamook County. And if you have any questions on the budget, since it's Denise's last year, she's going to take it.
That's probably the key, when I've looked over their budget before, is they're not asking for new people. And it's essentially rolling it forward with some of the increases that have happened, and including materials and supplies and so on. But it's, I would say this is a status quo budget. Is that a fair statement? And you've heard now in some detail what they do. And in my judgment, we have some very, very good people doing this in a really complex environment. And so That's, for my role as liaison, they've presented what I think is a very, very comprehensive budget with no significant changes, and they're gonna roll it forward, recognizing there'll be some new people in new positions.
So the only the biggest change they have is the buyout when they both retire. In the county, when you go from, either after you become an elected position, you're paid out your vacation or any comp time. However, your sick leave goes in a bank and it just sits there. You don't accrue anymore, but it just sits there until you retire. When you retire out, you are paid out your any additional sick leave that you had on the books when you became an elected official. So that is the only increase that, other than minor things in the assessor and tax department.
Good point, thank you.
I see administrative clerical has funds in it that weren't there in last year's budget. Is that a new position or did?
No.
Okay.
It was a position that was last year. They changed from, I think, an assessment tech to an OS2. So it's just where it falls in the GL.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions for these people?
Sean, is the buyouts in here somewhere?
Yeah, it's in the leave buyout, 5897, GL code 5897,
Okay.
Yeah, in the assessor budget.
in the assessor's budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like Sean said, tax, we basically just have the two, tax accounting tax, and we increase the postage a little, cause it's gonna go up. And then the assessor budget, yeah, it's a leave buyout, and our computer costs did go up 5%. Our Helion software that we use, that we love, it's user-friendly, they're a local, company out of Salem. They used to work for Polk County, so, yeah, it's mainly the people costs.
Any,
I-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to thank you for this presentation. It's really educational. It's excellent. Well done. And also I was thinking about 5 years ago, Lori came to us, to the commissioners and the budget committee, and explained how we were coming out of a hiring freeze. She explained how being short-staffed in the appraiser's office was actually costing the county money for all of the things, the properties that couldn't be appraised. And it was completely logical, but hadn't occurred to me before, and I'm sure I wasn't alone in that. So, that as a result of that effort, I see that great things have happened, and I just want to acknowledge that you really showed your leadership 5 years ago when you prepared that presentation and went to all of us to say, hey, heads up, this is what's really happening here. And we heard you, and so I'm grateful for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Give an A+ on the PowerPoint.
Okay, we will move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, we're talking for the most part here, general fund, so we'll enter into our conversation later today. So now we'll go to the county clerk, another one of my liaison groups, and we have a relatively new county clerk, and I'll ask her to introduce herself as well as one of her staff and what they do, and they can certainly tell you what they do. This is an essential part of what all counties do, and it's much of it is a statutory requirement. There's a few things they do that are optional, but they can explain all that to you. It's a relatively small department, but perhaps the most impactful of all when you hear what it is they do.
Small but mighty.
Small but
Mighty, that we are. Good morning. I'm Christy Nyseth, the county clerk, and I will be on the ballot in November for running for a 4-year term, and was appointed in September when we had the prior clerk retired. So this is my first budget cycle, and I do not have a beautiful presentation, but we did print out some graphs for you and just a little snapshot of what we do in our office. So probably the biggest thing to know about the clerk's office is everything that we do is mandated by state law or by county ordinance. Passports will be the only thing that we do in our office that is not mandated by law. So everything that we do is mandated. The first page is just for reference for you. It's just, these are the 4 funds that we have in our office. So we have elections, recordings, BOPTA, which is now called PVAB, which is Property Valuation Appeals Board. So there's that, and then we have the dog fund as well. So just a little snapshot this year, this budget year, what we've done, how many registered voters we have. We have 21,577 registered voters, which when I started at the clerk's office in 2011, we had 14,600. So we've had, with automatic voter registration, those numbers will continue to go up. And so that does then impact our costs and what it costs to put out an election. The average election cost is $46,000 to $70,000 per election. And it's important to note with elections that we are not allowed to charge the state. So the state does not pay for elections, the county does not pay for elections, and the cities do not pay for elections. And so the only money that we're able to bill for and get payback for the election cost is for special districts, so school, college, water, fire, sanitary, and then we have, if there's like recall elections or special districts, if they're going out for a measure that's like out of normal cycle, then we bill them for that as well. But so for this election that we have coming up in May and November, we will not be able to bill for that. So we will incur that cost, and that will be somewhere between that $46,000 to $70,000 mark. We have 11 seasonal temporary election workers, and then there are 4 of us that are full-time in the clerk's office. And so when it's election time, it's busy. So we have 15 of us in there that are working to do the conducting of the election. And those people are integral to being able to carry out the duties of the clerk's office. And we are not asking to increase staff this year. We are good with our 4 full-time and our 11 seasonal workers. And we are designated as a critical infrastructure by the Department of Homeland Security. And so it's very important that when we're conducting the elections, you know, we have to look at our safety and our security and everything and make sure that we're conducting it because the eyes are on us. And I think we all can attest that things have become very contentious over the last 4 years. So we're really thoughtful about that. So for recordings, as of April, we recorded 4,224 documents. And if you look at, it would be your 4th page. You can kind of see over the last 10 years where the recordings, they're pretty static. We record approximately the low 6,000s. We've had been in the upper 6,000s, but typically we're hovering around that, you know, lower to mid 6,000 for documents. So it has gone down a little bit. During COVID, we would have expected that those numbers would have dropped significantly, but with the incentives for people's mortgages, where they could do furlough on those and not pay for that year, there was a lot of refinancing. People were going out and getting new trust deeds. And so those numbers did stay pretty consistent even through the pandemic. And this year, though, we are quite a bit lower than I would have thought we would have been, but we won't be able to make up probably 2,000 recordings in the next 2 months. That's just probably not going to happen. So those recording fees that we would normally take in are not going to be there probably as normal.
Is there an alternate way that people are recording? Are they recording electronically or some other way?
The majority of documents are recorded electronically now. It's been amazing to have the functionality through Helion. As with the assessor's office, we use Helion software as well. And it's been, I think, 8 years now that we've been e-recording, and the number of documents that we get in the mail have dropped drastically. So we do probably 75 to 80% of documents come electronically, and the other 20% are probably over the counter, people walking them in or via the mail.
So the drop in number, I was just, I'm asking you to speculate, but could it be because there are fewer house sales, or?
I think there's fewer house sales right now, and the interest rates, yeah. So people aren't going out and refinancing like they had been the last few years.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay, that's okay. Can I ask you to speculate about one more thing?
Absolutely, I'm here for it.
I'm surprised by the number of registered voters because in the last census, they identified 27,000 people total living in Tillamook County.
Yes.
So that tells me that the census numbers must be really low. If we have 21,000 registered voters and 27,000 people altogether,
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense.
We have automatic voter registration, and 16-year-olds now are registered to vote.
Okay.
And so although they can't actually cast a vote until they're 18, the election of their 18th birthday, they are registered to vote, and they sit in this pending status in our voter registration system from their 16th birthday until they turn 18 and are able to vote, which I'm not sure the logic behind that. I don't necessarily agree with it because, especially for our community, there's a lot of transient people coming in and out for job wise. You know, they're here, and those 16-year-olds probably aren't going to be here when they turn 18. And so we do a lot of chasing of voters around to get updates and all of that. And so, but that's why, because we're pulling in, and we have a higher population of that, you know, teenagers and the school age kids. So I think that's probably why that number looks a little skewed too. Yeah, I could run that number for you if you'd be interested to know how many 16-year-olds. It would be good to know, like how many 16 to 18-year-olds there are.
Could you, for benefit of everyone, could you also speak to the motor voter, what's known as a motor voter registration?
Yes, and it's also known as AVR, which is automatic voter registration that Oregon implemented some years back. And when you go to DMV and you have an interaction with DMV, you're automatically registered to vote and put on the roll. You have an option within 30 days to opt out. If you choose not to opt out, you're automatically registered as a non-affiliated voter, so not associated to a party, but you are automatically registered to vote.
And by the way, the non-affiliated in the state of Oregon exceeds both the Republicans and Democrats
Correct.
as registered voters, so, and yet, the interesting thing, kind of as a sidebar, they do not participate in the partisan primary.
Correct, yes. And we're pretty equal across the three, you know, not affiliated, Democrat and Republican. We're pretty consistent across and evenly distributed. There's more nonpartisan in Tillamook County, but they're pretty close. So we've issued 195 marriage licenses this year, which is pretty standard for what we do at this time of the year. And we have accepted around 200 new passport applications, taken 450 passport photos, and completed 344 document requests. So people coming in wanting a copy of a deed, wanting to do deed research, whether just for historical, genealogical purposes, or because they're having an issue with a neighbor, they want to go find easements. And that's a lot of what we see are people that are trying to figure out like easements and when ownership, when things have changed hands over time. So we do a lot of document searching in our office. And we've had 166 customers access our digital research room, which is our online portal that you can go online and do document searching and actually purchase from August of 2002 to current. You can go online and purchase your documents immediately, pay by credit card, download your documents, and have access to them. So that's been beneficial. It's reduced staff time, which has been beneficial in being down a staff. We had been an office of 5 and we're 4. And so that's just trying to look at the way that we do things, simplify them, streamline them a little bit more so we can just move along with our staff of 4 people. Board of Property Tax Appeals, it's a function by statute that the clerks are responsible for providing the secretarial support to the Board of Property Tax Appeals. We have a board that's comprised of 4 members that the Board of County Commissioners appoints for us every year. And this year we just had 13 appeals, and all of them went before, no, not all of them, 11? 11 went before the board, and that wrapped up in March. So we're done for this year. And then dogs are dogs, and dogs are a very, that's just kind of it's a side little program, but we sorry, I don't know what else to say. It's pretty dismal, but we have issued 414 dog licenses this year so far. If you want to look at your last page, it's going to give you a nice little visual reference for where the dog program used to be. So if you look back 10 years, in that 2013-2014 budget year, we had a revenue of $18,467.50. Now we are just at $4,330. So a lot of things have changed with that ordinance 64. It needs to be looked at and really need to look at what is and isn't coming into our office in terms of like impound fees, things like that. So that's where we're at so far this year, just as of last week, the amount that we've brought in for a dog. And the due date was the end of March, and so now that's probably what we're gonna see, other than having just new people in. So we've gone from having almost 1,000 licensed animals down to 414. So that's a huge decrease. Any questions about any of that?
What I think I remember about the dog licensing is not that we have considerably fewer dogs in Tillamook County, but that we used to, the clerk's office used to send out reminder notices like your dog license is due, get in here and pay your dog license. And at some point we quit doing that. I don't remember what it has to do with ordinance 64, but maybe you could talk about what changed.
So we used to pay a contract to the city of Tillamook, and they received a part of our budget, and they went out and enforced. So at the end of February, I would send out the reminders, and then I would send the list of people that had not paid to the city of Tillamook, and then they had an officer then that would take that list, and then she would go out and she would knock on doors, and then we would end up in justice court if they ended up getting cited. And so we had it down to where we were down to maybe like 5 pet owners that didn't license, which is pretty big, you know, and that we did that for years. And then she left, and then the city said they were not going to be doing the same enforcement that they had been doing in the past. Okay. And so then when we had been in some meetings, it's been about 8 years ago, it was just, we were directed by the sheriff at that time to just stop putting so much effort into it. And so no one had the staffing and the time to go out and enforce, and so it doesn't get enforced. And so people know that there really isn't anything that's gonna happen if they don't license their dog, for lack of, really. So,
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And I think this program, because we are required as a mandate to do animal control, right? So there is a state mandate on the county to do this. We partner with a nonprofit called Canine Rescue, and and you will see in Christie's budget, where I think we pay roughly $25,000 a year to Canine Rescue, and dogs are dropped off at Canine Rescue and hopefully reunited with owners, and it's meeting, and I use air quotes on meeting, our mandate, because I think there's question about whether or not has the full service that it needs. And I know that Canine Rescue struggles every year just to stay afloat and to be able to do what they do for us. So it's an ongoing conversation we've had in the budget hearings at different times and outside the budget hearings at different times. But the dog program is a requirement, and probably, as time allows, which is where it always falls off the radar, should be revisited.
Yeah.
And we pay them almost 40,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 40,000. Yeah.
That was their minimum that Nanda came up with last year, and I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. I think it's one person, one employee that they have.
The 18,000 that you used to get from dog licensing, was that just from the city of Tillamook? Or is that from all the unincorporated areas as well?
So it's unincorporated so it's all unincorporated Tillamook County, plus if you don't live in the city of Bay City or the city of Tillamook, those 2 cities have animal control ordinances. So those 2 cities have control their dogs within their city limits. Everybody else in the city and in the county that's outside of Bay City or Tillamook, they must register and license their dog.
And so at the peak of the program, that $18,000 was all of unincorporated plus Tillamook, city of Tillamook, is that correct?
No city of Tillamook. We were just contracting for services through the city of Tillamook to provide enforcement.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And I think probably it's important too to note that we also, there's impound fees. So the ordinance lays out what the impound fees are, and then those fees historically were dropped in weekly or bi-weekly to the clerk's office because they had to get turned into us, and we would take those impound fees in, and the actual owner, if their dog was impounded, had to come into our office, pay the fee, make sure that they had a rabies, which is part of the statute and part of the ordinance, And then they had to have a dog license. So we're bypassing that whole part of, making sure that when dogs are released per the ordinance, that they have rabies and that they have a license. So, and that's where some of the fee.
So I live in Rockaway Beach. I don't have to have a license for my dog.
You do.
I do, damn it.
Yeah, I know. We'll send you a notice.
As we learned yesterday, I don't have to pay it, so.
That's right, 'cause
There
you
you
can
go.
go to justice court and it
Yeah,
just doesn't matter.
If you find me, I'm just not gonna pay it, so.
Perfect. That sounds good. It works.
I've had some, I just wanna say anecdotally, I've had some interactions with the clerk's office. I had one with you, in fact, last week, I think. I'm kind of a political junkie, so I've asked questions and I've always got really good responses and quick responses from the clerk. So, I really appreciate the work you guys do.
Thank you very much. We do like what we do. We do a lot of different things and it's fun. And being full staffed, we didn't have a transition plan, which is something that we're really trying to work on in succession and how that works going forward, and really trying to make sure that our staff are all cross-trained, that, the job that I had as chief deputy, those duties, I'm having to train Caitlin on so that she can take those things over so I can do the functions of the clerk. But we also have 2 brand new staff that have to be trained as well. And so it's really that learning curve and then trying to get everybody equally trained so that we can continue to be successful at what we do.
I'm going to paraphrase here, but you said something to the effect of Department of Homeland Security considers the clerk's office critical infrastructure department. Is there funding through Homeland Security?
They do have some grants that come down through emergency management I'm doing some research. This is a big learning year for us. So I think there's things that we want to see. One of the big things is looking at some of our safety and security, looking at fire suppression in our ballot boxes, looking at how we protect our election workers. And so there is money out there, and this is our year of really trying to go after that money to look and see where we can get it. And then hopefully this time next year when we're here, we'll, have some grants and some different things that we can, show to you as well and have put into place, or try to put into place then next year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you speak to election security without getting into all the nitty-gritty details? I know more cameras and those kinds of things might be of interest to everyone, and
Yes.
that they are budget related, and I think most of all of us would agree that elections have come under considerable scrutiny in the recent past, including one in Oregon and Clackamas County that got on the front page of the paper more than they should have, and so
Yeah.
anyway, please do that.
Yes. So talking about like election wise, what it is we're looking for. We are requesting to purchase a standalone laptop so that on a weekly basis, we can take our current voter roll off of our voter system. We can download that in an Excel and have that ready and have some of those critical reports that we would need should we have another cyber incident or have some kind of a natural disaster that would keep us from being able to be in the office. But we have to be able, boots on the ground, continue to do our work. And so one of the ways is to have a laptop standalone that we can have our documents, have our current voter list on there, the things that we need to move forward and be able to continue registering people to vote and conducting the election. So that's one thing that we are going to be asking for, we have asked for, and that's about $2,200 for the laptop and then the peripherals that we need. And that would be split between elections and recordings. Our ballot drop boxes don't currently have fire suppression in them, and with some of the things that we have seen and the trends that we're seeing across the country is that we really need to be mindful about how we're protecting the vote. So when you drop your ballot into that box, should somebody, I'm not going to say what they could do, but should somebody do something, we need to be able to mitigate that at some level. And so that's one of an easy, fairly inexpensive way that we could mitigate against some malintent. So that's one of the things we want to look at this year as well. We also do not have camera coverage for the full chain of custody of ballots when they come into our office. And so we do need to add 2 more cameras that capture the front of our office where the ballot drop box is, and then the main work area where the staff are, where we're processing and signature verifying, because those are 2 areas that people can't see when they're observing. And by law, we have to allow people to come in and observe. And so we need to be able to provide that coverage and show the full chain of custody of the ballots when they come in to our office, from opening to running through the tabulator. So, there, we had a walkthrough on February 12th, from Convergent, and it was $13,500 to just add a couple cameras. And so we worked with IS, and David was able to find something that was under $1,000 that we would be able to use and have our own external recording system, so we could actually record and retain, because we need to record and retain that footage for about 120 days, and we aren't able right now to go beyond 30 days. And so for under as like $600 plus the DVR unit that we need, then we would be able to have full coverage in our office. So that's what we are asking to be able to do. And we also do not currently provide a voter's pamphlet. And so it's something that I strongly believe in, that, you know, with voter outreach and education. And one of the things that we've had our constituents asking is, can we have a voter's pamphlet? Like, we want to be able to provide that. And I think it's imperative that we at least try and see what we can do. We wouldn't be able to probably print them and distribute them, but we definitely can go forward and have a PDF version that could be online, that people could go to our website and have. We could print off a few and have them in some key locations. But I think that's something that we really need to do for our voters. It's probably the most requested thing, that and having all of our documents out on the website. But it's probably the biggest thing that people ask for, and I'm a strong proponent of that, and I would ask that that would be something that we'd be able to add. We looked at what the Headlight Herald, we paid the Headlight Herald when we did it 2 years ago, and it was around $8,000 or $5,000, and we thought approximately $8,000, we could probably do it for that. There's a lot that we need to work out in terms of if we're going to be charging a fee for that, but that's something that is in our budget for this year as well.
I am excited to hear that, because you're right. People ask all the time why we don't have a local voters pamphlet. We're not required to produce one, but we don't have one. And so the state voters pamphlet is only for the bigger races. So for all the local stuff, there's no authoritative place where voters can get information on candidates or, you know, local issues. And so I'm thrilled that you're willing to take that on.
Yes.
Currently, what I think is happening is that when someone files to run, that gets uploaded to the website, and people can read who's filed. And but that's the extent of it. So I'm delighted that you're willing to take that on. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, you're welcome. We feel very strongly about that. So really looking forward to it. It'll be more work, but it'll be fine. It's totally worth it. A couple of changes that we did make where we have a new ballot return envelope. So when you got your ballot before, there was that goldenrod envelope that you would return it in and sign. Those have been retired because that goldenrod paper costs, it was like it was between 18 and 23 cents an envelope, because they had to specially order the paper and then make those envelopes. And so we were never able to bulk buy with other counties. And so this year we were able to bulk buy and get that cost down to 6 cents an envelope, and get rid of the secrecy sleeve, which they amended the rule that you don't have to have a secrecy anymore. And so we did the secrecy imprinting inside the envelope. So now we just have a secrecy envelope that is the return. It's white. It does have a goldenrod bar at the top. And so that's a change, but that will save us several $1,000s every year in the envelope costs. And so those are our big changes around elections. Any other questions about that?
I actually have a question. It just occurred to me that going back, in some of the other departments, we talked about looking at fees to see if fees are adequate. Have you looked at your recording fees to see if those are?
Yeah, so recording, that was one of our things. Recording fees are set by statute. So yeah. However, we are looking at, we've talked with Doug a couple of times. This year is going to be a year that we look at our fee schedule, and we look at, we want to add providing, so by statute, we can do marriage ceremonies in the office and charge a fee for that. And that's something that people ask for a lot as well. So we've done 10, I think. I've done 10 so far, but we haven't been able to charge because we don't have a fee set for that. But we're going to be looking at adding that, looking at our marriage license fee, looking at how, if we're going to actually do document searching, because by statute we can, and by order as well, we can charge a fee for our time. So if people want us to go look in our old index books and try to find something, and we have the time to do it, I think that we could offer that and charge the hourly rate to do that. So really trying to look at the different areas where we can increase our fees a little bit, which would then help obviously our revenue. So we are definitely going to look at that this year.
I think it's fun that you're marrying people.
Oh, it's great. It is fun. It's you know, they're usually not mad at you when you're doing that, so that's good. No, it's fun.
You did about 10?
So far. Done so far 10.
So I've got an idea. So charge like $400,000 per marriage, and we can
Oh.
take care of the budget deficit.
There you
That's
go.
great. You write that up, we'll do it.
Okay.
I think it'll go over well. Yep. So by statute, it's $117.
Oh, shoot,
I
right.
know, but, so yes. Over at our software, again, like I had mentioned, we do Helion software, and they did have a 5% increase, so you'll see that. We also pay, we use Electionware and for our tabulator and for doing our results for every election. And that, they weren't able to tell me what it's going up to this year, but we do about $23,000 for that every year for the contract in order to have our tabulator and Electionware. So that is a cost, but I don't have anything, so we just left that the same. And we do have our clerk's records fund, which you see, and that is designated for us to maintain and archive our records. And our goal is to take our records in our record room, because we have the old books, and get those digitized so that they're actually out there. So we're able to stop pulling the books down and opening them, and we're hurting the infrastructure of the actual books, but it's also staff time that we could reduce if we're able to just have those digitized. So we'll be looking this year at how we might be able to do that, and then using some of that money. I think there's currently $80,000 in the records fund right now, and it's going to cost well over that to do it, but we want to at least try to get started on that this year as well. I think that's it.
Any more questions? You heard yesterday from the surveyor that a lot of what he does ends up in this office, the clerk's office. And so, like I think probably every county in America, if you want to know who owns a piece of property, you go to the county clerk in that particular county, and they should be able to bring the records up, and that's how the system works. And we are vulnerable in some ways, in terms maybe of fire protection and some other things, but all that is showing up in our facility plan, as well as some things that need to be done. And some things will happen this year, particularly the cameras, but then there's some other things that go on, and there's a bit of a practice, as I learned from her in the Homeland Security report. You don't talk a lot about some of the internal protection, simply because there are folks out there that like to come in here and mess up the system, and so no point in giving them free advice.
Nope. No.
I wonder if you just talk briefly about the election process itself, because when I had the opportunity to be an election observer, I learned so much, and I was amazed about what actually goes on with an election, particularly on election day.
Particularly on election day. Okay, so we by law have to be open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. on election day. And so what happens is we have all of our drop sites. We have 11 drop sites in the county, and we have to man each of those drop sites at 8 p.m. So in our office, we're working all day processing ballots, and then we have our people that are out at the drop sites, and they bring the ballots into us, and the ballots get opened and get flattened, and then that's the opening board. And then we have a separate board that's in the back of our office, and they are the adjudication board. And so they take every ballot and they inspect it to make sure that it's going to be able to go through the tabulator. And a lot of times if you're voting, okay, do I vote for this person or this person? Sometimes, you'll rest your pin down onto your ballot, and that little pin dot that you leave in the oval causes it to go as an overvote, or it errors out when it's going through the tabulator and says, oh, wait a second, there's something wrong with this race. And so our tabulator tells us if you go to governor And it will tell you the exact race to go look at, but you kind of, after a while, you get used to like checking them over. So what the adjudication board does is they look at those, they find the pin dots and they wipe those out. Oregon is a voter intent state. And so if you fill in one oval and then you go, oh shoot, I wanted to vote for this other person, you can X out your one vote and then fill in the next oval. And then what we do is when we look at that, we say, well, your intent was to vote for this person. This X'd out one is not what you want. And so the board whites those out. So they're correcting anything, making sure that there aren't coffee stains. Happens a lot. The gold envelopes bled because it gets wet here. And so we have to then duplicate those because those won't go through our tabulator. So we have a board that's duplicating. And then myself and Caitlin are back in the tabulator, running the ballots through the tabulator and then boxing them up. And then we have customers that are coming in and voters that are coming in wanting to update their registration, or they didn't get a ballot because they had moved and didn't let us know. And so we're updating registration, issuing ballots, and then also doing the other work that we have to do, which is recordings and taking care of the mail and all of that. So that's kind of what it's a little hive of busyness and good food as well, because we have potluck that day. So it's a good day to indulge. But it's pretty busy. It's fun. You know,
How many election workers?
we have 11 temporary and then the 4 of us, but it's just, Caitlin and I are the ones that know how to do the election process at this point.
And
The
then
four
we
of us.
also have volunteers.
And then we have some volunteers. We have some prior employees that will go do drop sites for us, and some retired county staff. And Denise has picked up ballots for us too, in Rockaway. And so we have people that are volunteers, and then we have our paid staff.
And then we also have observers.
We have observers. So you can come in, and typically, it's typically either the Democrat or the Republican Party that have observers come in. And so they're allowed by law to sit and watch what we do during that time. And I'm thinking that there's going to be attorneys for, I can't remember who it is. Anyway, but there'll be attorneys statewide that are going to be out in election offices as well, kind of watching the process too.
I was amazed to learn that the former clerk actually personally reviewed every single signature. There's a training that you go through to make sure that the signatures are correct, the ones on file.
Yes, so we are forensically trained by the FBI to do signature verification, and so there's a barcode on your ballot return envelope. So you sign and attest that that's your signature, and then there's the barcode. We wand it like you would like a grocery store wand. So we wand it. It brings up your name, your address, your signature, and then we verify what's signed on the envelope against what's on your voter record. And then if it doesn't match, we send you a letter. A lot of people don't sign. A lot of husbands and wives or partners sign each other's envelopes accidentally, like I might sign yours, you might sign mine, or they just say, oh, well, they're not here, I'll just sign. And that's a big no-no. That's a Class C felony. You don't want to do that. And so we spend a lot of time then having to send letters and get those cured. But we do check, and we have a button that we can click. It's a history button, so we can have every signature on file. So anytime that you've updated, because quite often, maybe you do a little shortened signature sometimes, and sometimes you do your full signature. And we have those all, so we can go back and see, oh, this is the shortened version. We have that here. It may not.
Because my signature varies depending on the day. Yeah.
But it's very fascinating that even though things change, you still have those common characteristics about how you sign. And it's very easy over time to look at that and to kind of recognize that you do that. So, we signature verify, and then we have 2 election workers actually are going to go through the training Monday. So next Monday we have our training, and so they're going to be assisting us this election with that as well. So, yep, there's a lot that goes into it, all the little details that you don't think about, but it's a lot. We welcome all of you to come see, hang out with us. Yep, it's fun.
It's impressive, and I'm really grateful that we can have confidence in our election integrity, and as a result of your work. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Could you, one last thing here, could you speak to your relationship with the Secretary of State? Because
Yes.
that's the office statewide that has ultimate say in a lot of election matters, as you all know.
Yeah, the Secretary of State's office is our chief election officer for the state of Oregon. And so they're the ones who write the rules and direct us on how we're to handle certain situations. They also are responsible for maintaining the Oregon Centralized Voter Registration System, which is OCVR. And they're the ones that cover that. They're our go-to when we need questions about referendums, if things are going before, if we're having something that's going to go to the vote, if there's a formation and there's those little specific questions that we have, they're our go-to group that they can help us and answer all of our questions. And we're very fortunate to have them. And I will say that they are implementing a new voter registration system called Orvis that will go live sometime after the general election in November. So early, I want to say around February, it will go live. And so that will be, I think it will be good for us. There'll be a lot of really great things with that. A lot of positives. And so we definitely need a new system. So we're going to get through the November election and then we'll be starting in on learning a new system. So, but that's who.
Yes,
That's it all.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And
One last question. You talked about some attorneys are gonna be observing. What's that about?
It has to do with a ballot measure that's going on in November. So there's something called ranked choice voting, and that's ranked choice voting.
Okay.
Yep, and it's going before the voters in November.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of contention around that, and so there'll be a lot
Okay.
around that. Yep.
I'm grateful to have you both in these seats. We're lucky to have Chrissy having been the chief deputy clerk for 12 years before we appointed her earlier this year. So that was a smooth transition, and we're fortunate. And we're fortunate to have Caitlin in the deputy clerk position now. Congratulations. And I just as an aside, I can say that Caitlin used to be at Parks, and people still miss you and still talk about you, and have been talking to me about, do you think you could get Caitlin back? And I said,
No.
I don't think so.
I'm sorry.
well, this country runs on elections, and if you mess up the elections, you basically made terrible things can happen, as we all know. And, some of our elections have become an annuity for lawyers. It just goes on and on and on. And here in Oregon, we had what I just considered, and at the time, my daughter happened to work over there, not in the election, but Clackamas County, as I said earlier, I think ended up on the front page for all the wrong reasons. And that puts a stain across elections in Oregon. So I don't think we worry about that here, but then there are a number of protections in place, as you heard, and I think there are others there that we don't know and we wouldn't talk about in public. So I think we're pretty safe here in Tillamook County, in my opinion, having been their liaison now for a while. So yes, I agree with Commissioner Bell. We've got some good people, and good for us, good for the people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think it's time to take 5 here, and then we've got 2 more to get to before lunch. Looks like lunch is a little bit early today, maybe, but
That's okay.
we're gonna have a long afternoon, so we need to get fueled up.
Now.
Just a second, let me sign in.
Is community development way down here?
So it'll be video live.
No, EDC, yeah, it's the next one.
Okay.
So if you flip 2 pages past that, it's all about, or flip to the next page.
Okay.
It's EDC. I'm with you.
Just the labels didn't match. So that's the complaint. I'd be happy to. I'm sure that it is.
Say about he who complains.
I know, well, it came from that table, not me. I was explaining.
I'm not helping. Although I do appreciate it.
I really appreciate that they're in order with the order of the presentations, because that wasn't always true, and I would find myself flipping.
No, you get a big book like this that had everything in it.
I know, and it was ordered by number, and so I never remember the number versus the name. I don't have all that memorized, and they were in order by number, and so then I would be like, where do I go?
Well, thank you for having them in order.
It gets just more efficient and effective every year.
And then you let us know what others. Yeah, there's a share button up here. I was like, you need to go. I don't know. Share. Buy the membership. No, I don't care. She needs to go. Share it right up here. She's gonna do a quick. She probably wanna mute her camera wants to go to this management training thing that she's been looking at. And the OHA is being important.
In Hawaii. I don't ever use Teams, sorry.
She's going to Hood River and not home baby.
So you probably want to disable your camera because you're going to be.
And that's the
And
only
another
place.
in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. I think
Alaska?
because I've heard of community people.
Quite lucrative.
They are.
Yeah, for the business.
They don't like how
Who works for Sims? I think it depends, but I'll tell you, I'm working with on food and beverage revenue.
We had to go to that. Promise we would.
Yeah,
We
but
couldn't
then we
go
get virtually.
No, you had to be in person.
There's grant funds for that.
You have to be,
Oh, shoot.
you have to be a
It's like
Grant funds are grant.
too many years of traveling.
Just
I wanna do it
start a new
anymore.
enterprise
for a
fund.
small fee, I'll help you get it set up.
Driving, okay, but I want a license.
Well, it's kind of, efficient, you get approved.
You guys are funny.
Yes. Right.
Yes, indeed. I just want the interaction that y'all have.
Yeah, you're not gonna get. Yeah, it definitely is.
I would agree.
You don't see it.
I would agree.
Of our own budget.
Yeah.
We didn't bring anything because we sent our presentation.
Yeah, it was just, yeah, we're supposed to bring.
No, we don't have.
Talking to a little.
Well, she has her budget too.
Yeah, he's my laptop. Okay, thank you. We got to run back in. We can run back.
It's astounding.
I don't have my laptop either. I have my laptop.
And they're probably making almost more money from that than other sales.
Bring up anything before.
Yeah.
Terry, you can ignore that message from me.
I know.
That's what I told Terry, she walked in, I said, oh, Commissioner Bell's calling you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Tillamook County Budget Committee back in session at 10:48. So we have two more before lunch, the first of which is the Economic Development Council. And we have the director, now almost a longtime director here, Terry Cooper. And well, I'll just turn it over to you, and if you'd introduce yourself and the individual next to you, give us a bit about your background, and then we'll go through your budget.
My name is Terry Cooper. I'm the director of the Economic Development Council. I started in January of 2019, so I'm on year 6 now. And next to me is Maria Correa. She's the EDC project coordinator. So we work together in the EDC and do lots of different things. My background, let's see, I've been in economic development in Oregon since 2008. I worked for the Umatilla tribes doing economic development for 5 years, and then I worked for the city of Hillsborough before I came here. So economic development's been doing that for quite a while. What else? I can't think of anything else.
Well, she also has an MBA. So, and she's been I sat on that board or council for 10 years, and Commissioner Bell is now the president, and she can certainly speak up as well, that this group does a lot of things behind the scenes. They're certainly not the most visible group in Tillamook County, but they've done a lot of good things, and they've encouraged a lot of small businesses to, screw up their courage and go out and go into business, and sometimes they get financial help. They always get counseling, and I think it's a pretty integral part of what goes on in this county for my part. So I'll turn it over to you or Commissioner Bell, or whoever wants to take it forward.
Jump right in, Terry, and then I'll fill in as needed.
Okay. So just a little bit about what I think the EDC is about, and these are just strictly my words, but I think a lot of times, as Doug said, we're behind the scenes because we're really a kind of a connecting agency. We have a lot of connections throughout the state, throughout the region, throughout the county, and a lot of times there'll be an issue that needs to be solved. Let's say a water line. We worked on organizing the group that got together to get the water line that goes underneath the airport fixed, and that they ended up getting some funding from Senator Weber. It got some funding for them. So it's really, organizing the people, all of the players together to meet these kind of critical needs that happen. And the reason we're a lot of times behind the scenes is because we work on those infrastructure issues, housing, water lines, dredging, all kinds of things that happen behind the scenes that most people don't see. We in the last year, I'd say, we got a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to work on the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Tillamook County. And that has kind of put us more in the forefront because we've had some fun things like pitch contests and some connecting meetings for businesses and stuff like that. So, I guess the combination of those two puts us a little bit more in the limelight lately. This is a picture of our grand finale winners from our pitch contests. So we had 3 mini pitch contests. We had one in Pacific City, one in Manzanita, and one in Tillamook. And then we took the top 2 from each of those, and they came to a grand finale. And we had 6 people present. And these are our top 3 winners. So the top winner got $10,000. The second place got $5,000, and the third place got $2,500.
So could you tell them what a pitch contest
So a pitch contest is so the way we worked it for Tillamook County is you either had to have a new idea for a business, or you had to, if you were already in business, if it was a new product line or a new service or something you were trying to change, then you were also eligible. So they came in and gave us, the first time they had 3 minutes, and they came in and gave us a little spiel about their thing, and then we had judges, and the judges rated them, and so then we took the top 2 from those 3, we called a mini pitch contest, and came into this, and in this one they had 10 minutes to give a little bit more information, and we had some judges come in from out of the area from Portland that work with this type of stuff all the time. And so they judged the 6 people that pitched, and these were our 3 winners. So it's kind of like a Shark Tank thing, if you will, but we call it our Leon Tellis Manage, the SBDC director, calls it a dolphin tank, because we're not nearly as mean as the Shark Tank guys are. But it was good because you could see these business owners that weren't used to, and they were nervous, but it was a lot of fun. Doug was there. It was a lot of fun. They got to stand up there and talk about their business and show their passion and show what they would do with the money if they got the money, and it was a lot of fun. So we're trying to make that an annual thing. So in September, we'll have 3 more mini pitches, and then in October, we'll have the pitch finale.
It was delightful, actually. I got to be the judge for one of the mini pitch contests, and it was wonderful. We connected, some of the folks who were competing were already in the SBDC small business class. Some of them were not. So the SBDC director was there. We connected all the contestants with SBDC, told them about all the benefits they can get about the Small Business Development Center, told them all the benefits they can get by going through that program. There was someone there who gave advice about marketing and in particular digital marketing. There were, you know, we gave people useful feedback on their business plans and on their presentation, and it was really dynamic. And it was cool to be part of that entrepreneurial spirit, and you know, be able to boost people up in the beginning phases of their business. It was really great. And that was just one of the mini pitch contests that, as Carrie said, you know, we went on to the grand finale. But I've since talked to the folks from Country Squire Farms who won first place, and they're so enthused, and they're really it's fun to talk to them. And if you haven't visited their food cart, you should, and ask them about this, because they'll tell you like all their plans. Oh, we're doing this and we're doing this, and it's very exciting to be a part of that energy and to grow small businesses in Tillamook County. It's very important. And also, I hope you'll talk about the pitch contest for young people, and also talk about the efforts that we made to reach out to the Spanish-speaking community.
Question, excuse me,
Just
one
a
here.
quick question. The winners, is there any formal follow-up that they actually report to you how they used it?
So they'll be coming back to the EDC board to report
Okay,
in 6
okay.
months, how they're doing, what they did with the money, how they spent it, that kind of a thing. That was what the board decided to do,
Right,
that they
okay,
wanted them
right.
to come back and talk to them.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So yeah, there is. So just a little bit out of that, so we've had, with building the entrepreneurial ecosystem, sometimes it's hard to know, you know, what impact you're making. So go through a little bit of this is, we've had 4 businesses actually get their business license in the state. Of course, we had the contestants, we had the grand finale, we referred 15 businesses, 25 businesses. With planning this and going through that, we worked with community partners. And so I'll get to the next slide, I think, is our junior entrepreneurship. And that was done with 4-H and Juntos. And Maria attended the meetup they had and with the SBDC together and it was conducted in Spanish, completely in Spanish. And they had about 15 different attendees there. We're doing something called Coffee Connect, and we've done it so far in Tillamook, and we did it in Nahalem a couple of weeks ago, and we have in May, we have one in Pacific City, and we're gonna just rotate those throughout. Or if we just invite business people or entrepreneurs to come in and talk on a topic and just kind of network and meet up. And then we have a Lunch and Connect coming up next week, which is a lunch with all of our resource partners. So bankers, lawyers, real estate people, marketing people, anybody that works with small businesses, so we can vet out kind of what they're doing, what they can do, bookkeepers, accountants, any of those people. So our idea is to bring them in, you know, tell them about the program and what we're trying to do, and kind of, you know, see where they are and who we can refer out to and who we can't, that kind of thing. So those are some of the programs that are ongoing right now. And I think the one that, I'll skip forward and then go back. So this was a picture from our Junior Entrepreneurship Day. We had a Saturday where we brought kids in from Juntos and 4-H, and we let them come up with a business idea. And they had a coach. Maria was the coach, Leon Telesmanch for the SBDC coach, and Terry Flaskill from SBDC, they were coaches. And they developed a business plan. So we took all morning. They came up with their idea. They developed their business plan. We ate lunch, and then they had to give their pitch. And then I was a judge, and there was a couple other people that were judges. We had so much fun with the kids, and I was amazed by how into it they were and how dialed in they were. There was nobody that was off goofing around, they were really into it. And you'll be interested to know that a lot of them wanted an entertainment center with mini golf and stuff like that for kids to do. There was 2 of them that was their business idea that they pitched. But I think it's something that we're continuing. We have a meeting at the end of this month with the Northwest ESD, Juntos, and 4-H again to set up what that's going to look like for this next year.
And for folks who aren't familiar with Juntos, it's a program for students who identify as Hispanic, and Juntos meaning together, and it's definitely in Tillamook County, but I think they've also expanded, I mean, the city of Tillamook School District, but I think they've also expanded to the north and south, to Neocani and Nestucca. So any students who identify as Hispanic who want to be in that group can be, and they have really terrific, meaningful programming all year.
Yeah, and Maria had two people in her group that were Spanish speaking. And, you know, and what amazed me was there was a couple of them that really wanted to start their own business. But then I thought, I asked them a question, Margaret, there was, how many of your parents have their own business? And at least 3/4 of them had parents that had their own small businesses. So they're, you know, they're used to kind of that arena and stuff. But we really felt like it was worthwhile and it was fun. You know, oftentimes we do kind of serious stuff, you know, working on infrastructure and those kinds of things. But it was an opportunity for us to have some fun with the kids. So we're looking forward to doing that again this fall. So I think one of the things that's been brought up to me is that EDC does a lot of different things. So I did this breakdown so y'all can see. This is kind of what I work on for this year. Oh, that's supposed to say 23, 24, sorry. But you can see there's a lot of different things that the EDC works on, and the Level Up program this year, being the first year, was the biggest piece of the pie. There's a lot of other things. You know, I'm on the Child Care Advisory Committee. I'm on the Brownfield Committee. I go to the housing meetings. I'm on the workforce board for the region. We've had 2 job fairs in the last year in conjunction with workforce. Business retention, just meaning that we go out and talk to businesses and kind of find out what they need and what we can do to help them. We operate a revolving loan fund. The EDC has had a revolving loan fund since 1996. This has been lending to the Tillamook County small businesses all throughout that time. So I just wanted to put a visual up there of kind of all of the different things that are involved. A lot of people always say, well, what does EDC do? And I'm like, it's really hard to define because we do a lot of different things, or we're involved in a lot of different things.
Can you explain a little bit what Level Up is? I saw earlier in the year some social media about it, and I was like, what is this?
Level Up is our project that we're doing with the Ford Family Foundation to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Tillamook County. And we're trying to do that by, you know, having some meetings and networking, and then if people need help, referring them out to places, and then having these pitch contests, just kind of trying to incentivize people to go and start businesses, and not just willy-nilly. SBDC is part of that Level Up project, so we want to encourage them when they're going to go out and start their business to get the right kind of training behind them when they start their business.
And also, since you mentioned SBDC, it seems like there's some redundancy between SBDC and Economic Development Council. Can you talk about how those work together and how they're the same and how they're different?
I don't know if there's redundancy. We do work together a lot. The difference is SBDC does training, right? They actually hold the classes and do the training, whereas that's not something that the EDC does. What we normally do is, you know, we work on bigger picture issues like infrastructure and stuff. But now that we're into this entrepreneurship, we kind of organize the stuff, and then if people need training, we send them to the SBDC. So we kind of work synergistically, I would say. We don't do the same thing, but we do very often work together because, you know, we're both kind of small agencies, and it helps to have each other to, you know, back each other up, I guess, if you want to say that.
SBDC, as you would know, runs the truck driving school as well, and that's been an immensely successful program. When I was on EDC when that started, and there were some grants, and I think now you pay $5,000 at tuition, but you get your commercial driver's license in a matter of weeks, or how long it takes.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And to my knowledge, every graduate has had a job offer or multiple job offers upon graduation and considerably above minimum wage. Am I speaking correctly there?
And the EDC was doing the lending in the very beginning. We were doing the lending to the students so they can afford that $5,000 thing. But then eventually, it got bigger than what we could handle. So it's now being done by TLC, Fiber Federal. But in the beginning, we were doing the $5,000 loans, people that they can pay off over 3 years so they can get their training.
It's very popular.
Yes.
College. And it's really cool with the simulator and everything that they're able to do.
Yeah, the simulator came through the EDC. We got the grant from the state to purchase the simulator from the EDC, and then handed it over to the EDC. It's a I would say synergistically we work together, not all the time, but a lot of times.
And there was a time when in Tillamook County, EDC and SCDC were combined, and it wasn't very effective because they do have different missions. And then when we had the former president of TBCC came on, Ross, he said, SBDC is a function of the community college. It's a function of education, and we need to commit to it and invest in it. And so he pulled them apart and hired a full-time SBDC director, and that's through the college. So whereas EDC is an intergovernmental entity.
So this is my projected project breakdown for this coming year. So I just want to go over how it's changing. So I'm hoping to reduce my part of Level Up because a lot of it's been organizational. Like I had to write the rules behind the pitch contest and all of that stuff, and that was stuff that I did. Now hopefully Maria's taking that over and she'll be doing the coordinating since all of that's already in place. So some things that I'm trying to add this year, we have been asked to do an industrial site inventory, which is supposed to be updated, I think, every, I don't know how many, it hasn't been done since, 2005, I think. And the PUD needs it and a couple different people need it. So that's one thing that we're tasked with. It's on our list to tackle. It also, we have an enterprise zone update, which I have to go out to all 3 school districts and to the county to present because the laws changed around enterprise zone. We have to have a community resource lead in case somebody comes and wants that. The enterprise zone is an activating program for 3 years automatically if new business comes in and builds something new, property tax exemption. But if they want that extra 2 years, they have to agree to pay a community service fee to the school districts. It's a new law that just recently went into effect. And so I have to go to the school districts and negotiate what that fee would be and then present it to the county and get it signed off on. So that's another project that's new this year. Keep it local. So I've been working on this for a couple of years and I'm really close to having it ready to roll out. So my idea behind it is to promote Tillamook County businesses. We'll have a website that says Keep It Local Tillamook, and you could type in there, I want to go to a restaurant, type in there restaurant, and it'll pop up all these pins of all the restaurants in Tillamook. Or I need to go to get my hair cut, I need to put that in there and it'll pop up all these pins. So it's kind of a highlight. It can be any kind of business, fisherman, any kind of business that wants to be on the bill, right? As long as they're businesses. And so the software that I'm having developed is part of the budget request increase that I asked for last year. And we're about ready to roll that out. And so we'll have signage. I have a sign, permission to put a sign on Highway 6 already. And then I have to start working in the north and south end. And then we'll start doing outreach and signing up businesses. So everybody says, it's something that is needed, and so I've been working on it for 5 years now. It's very labor intensive. So with that in mind, So new projects, like I said, keep it local, the land inventory. We're developing a technical assistance fund with some grant funding to where if we find businesses that need some help with legal help or accounting help or website design or something like that, we can do a matching grant to them. So if they're spending $1,000, we can match $1,000. I say EDC Roadshow because we have been at the board, the EDC board has been working on redoing our intergovernmental agreement, which is what we're operating under. And that has to go out to all of the partners for signage to be signed again. So it was originally done in 1996. And when we started looking at it, the wording was bad and there had been additions to it and nothing was connected. And it was so, that's been a part of what we've been working on, or the board has been working on. So I have that coming up. And then somebody approached me about doing a public meeting around economic development with different things in there. So it started out with Brownfield wanted to be there and housing wanted to be there. So we're just in the very beginning stages of how we could put together under an economic development umbrella, a public meeting that lets these different entities talk about their projects to make the public more aware of what's happening. So that's kind of in the beginning stages. Those are all new things for 2024. And the reason I bring those up is because I did ask for an increase this year. And because I need to increase staffing in order to accomplish all of these things, I'm hoping to hire another person on the staff, on the EDC staff, either half-time or three-quarter time to kind of project manage some of these projects. As you can imagine, I can organize them and come up with the ideas and put the people together to do them, but it's the actual getting out there and getting them done that's hard for me to do just by myself, so.
Mary and Maria accomplished a lot with 1 3/4 time, because Maria, you're 30 hours, right? Yeah, they do an astonishing amount of work for 1 3/4 time people, and the board has been working hard on, as Terry said, bylaws, the intergovernmental agreement, updating it. We updated our mission, vision, values. We're developing our onboarding process for new board members, etc. And so in a recent board meeting, we were talking, and I'm going to let Doug speak for himself, but Doug said, it's clear that you need more people. So I'm kicking it over to you.
Well, they do, and if you look at their funding, it's a bit unusual. It comes from the Oregon Lottery, the bulk of it, and there's some cash balance rolling forward like any entrepreneurial type fund, but there were some years where it dipped way down because people weren't sticking money in the slot machines and other buying the cards, the tickets, lottery tickets. But that seems to have leveled off, and it's really fairly predictable. But the things that they want to do can't be done with 1.8 people or whatever the math is. And so this is a self-sustaining organization. They don't spend money they don't have. They don't borrow money. They don't call on the county's general fund or other resources. They fund themselves, and there's really not a lot of fee income. But as she said, what they do goes on behind the scenes, and it's really very hard to measure. I know when I was on the board, we tried for years to measure how well you're doing and what the impact is, and the truth is, in my opinion, you really can't measure it because you plant a seed in somebody's mind, and maybe 3 years later they take the leap and go off and start a business or whatever. But to me, this is an integral part of a community, as you do, and she's doing much more of it, getting the youngsters involved, because if you know something about running a business or what it can do and the advantages and the risks, when you're 15 or 18 years old, you don't have to learn that the hard way at age 30 in some cases. So I think it's worthwhile, but to do this with the staff that you have is getting more and more problematic. And there's an argument that do fewer things and do them well, but there are so many things that need to be done that if it can be funded, then another person or the equivalent of a person could step up and do much of that. And again, it's tough to measure, but sometimes you just have to take a chance and try it. And I think the funding's there to do it. So, you know, they're not calling on the general fund. They're not calling on other resources of the county. They're just saying, can we do this and will you make it part of the approved budget? So for me, it works. Others can speak up as well.
I agree with that, and because the video lottery this is an allowable expense of video lottery, the state intends for video lottery to be funneled into economic development. And we're, you know, EDC is not a department of the county, but an intergovernmental entity that the county was part of standing up. So the county's an original partner in the EDC. And to Terry's point about the roadshow, in updating our intergovernmental agreement and our bylaws, we have to go to all of those partners and get all of those partner entities to agree to the updates, which will be tricky because it's all the cities, it's the county, it's the special districts. It's going to be a bunch of work, but it's worthwhile work, and it becomes obvious now why it hadn't been done for years. And but we think it'll be a great opportunity to educate all of those partners about what EDC is doing, because very likely they don't know. So I think it's good work, but there's a lot of work ahead.
I think one thing I didn't mention was in the veins of bringing more funding into the EDC, I think I had on their projects for partners. So what we hoping with this new person, we can take on managing some projects for partners like the Housing Commission or any of these other people that need any of the cities or the courts or any of our members that need help with grant management or any kind of thing like that. We're hoping to pick up that piece that I think is kind of missing. And, you know, good thing is we're only doing it for Tillamook County, and so we're here local, so we can attend those meetings and be part of that, versus getting somebody from outside to do that work.
And I would love to see us devote more of Maria's time to outreach to the Spanish-speaking business community, which she's doing now, and she's doing translation and outreach and meetings and stuff. But if there was additional help available, Maria could do more of that, which I think would be very valuable.
So questions on economic development? You know, it's not a very, it's like we said, it's not very visible. A lot of it is behind the scenes, but it's a pretty integral part of what goes on. And I remember well when it was 50-50, and in fact, when we'd hired a director at one time, the half of that individual's time was on the SBDC, Small Business Development, and then half on EDC. And sometimes when you try to do all that, neither one of them get done all that well, and that's kind of what happened. And so it evolved into where it is now. And in my mind, they're both self-sustaining. They're doing what they should do, and that's a pretty good thing to have in Tillamook County.
I can remember when one person was trying to both things.
Yes,
right.
You are correct.
I would like to see, I think you talked about being visible behind the scenes. I'd love for you to be more visible and maybe as an example, I was just thinking maybe coming to Rockaway, coming to the city council meeting, maybe make a presentation.
We will be doing a roadshow. We'll go to Rockaway.
Because I think a lot of people don't even know.
Yeah, we should be starting that probably in the fall. And we'll go to all the cities, the ports, the PUD, board, everyone, including the county commissioners have to sign the UAP.
You're looking at the entire PR staff and marketing staff, and not only that, you know, they wash windows and whatever else needs to be done. Anything else for EDC? Thank you so much. Okay, last but certainly not least, before lunch, is our health department, and I will tell you that's the largest department that is non-general fund. They do a lot of important, great things across this county that you'll hear about in a moment. They employ a lot of people. They have significant cash flow from a wide variety of sources. And they're an integral part of this county. So Marlene, you can take it away, and if you would introduce yourself and your background, and also your staff that you brought along, and then we'll go from there. And Marlene will probably not tell you, in addition to running this department, she's also has a law degree. And I don't know how much that plays into what you do, but she's an exceptionally, in my opinion, an exceptionally qualified individual, and good things have happened under her leadership. So go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Marlene Putman. As Doug described, I'm the department director, administrator, depending upon who you talk to. People use different titles for that position. Our department is called the Health and Human Services Department because it has services that fall in this broad category of health, but also has opportunities and on and off has what are called social kind of service programs. I'm going to focus on the services today that we're doing around the broader category of health. And with me,
Arlene Fitzgerald, I'm the accounting manager.
that was short and sweet. Any background you want to share?
I've been working with the department since 2011, so I've been here a while.
Maya?
I'm Maya Van-Tyrock. I'm an admin specialist for the department. I've been here about a year and a half.
Okay, so I was just thinking, how long have I been with the county? Like 30 years, I think, now. With the department, the same amount of time as Irene with this department. So you can see the slides as well, but I'm going to try to go through them fairly quickly so that you don't have to stay here too late or that we cut into your lunchtime. But as indicated, we're a general fund department, and that means that our revenue comes primarily from, other sources, not from county general fund.
You said general.
We are not, you're not.
Oh, I'm not, sorry. We're a special revenue fund department. Thank goodness I have other people. Surprise, we're now general fund. Did you know? We need 17 million.
Really bad news.
Yeah,
Very bad.
so we're not. Special revenue fund, so where our funds come from primarily are from a federal grant from the Health Resources and Services Administration, about $2.5 million. And we receive funds from the Oregon Health Authority for the chunk of our public health services. And the rest is from insurance money from patient-generated revenue, the biggest source being Medicaid, which is about 60% of the folks we serve in medical, about 95% in dental, and about 65-70% for behavioral health services. So that's just some context. Our broad mission is to protect and promote the health of all people of Tillamook County. It's primarily a public health mission, but it really relates to the community needs and the community health as a whole. Our services listed here are pretty broad, all the way from primary care, which is like family care provider, where you go see your doctor or your nurse practitioner or physician assistant for your healthcare services. We also provide behavioral health, dental. We have a specialist in dermatology who also works with our department, some nutrition services, a broad array of public health, and I'm going to dive into these a little bit more. Environmental health from a range of things from, animal bites to food, pool, and lodging types of things. Emergency preparedness and response. We have on-site intimate violent partner violence prevention, and we're working on the development of a community pharmacy to meet some of the needs expressed by our community most recently. We work with both the Board of County Commissioners, our liaison is Commissioner Scar, and a health council of primarily patients who receive services in our facilities. So the reason why we receive $2.5 million from the federal government is because we are what's called a federally qualified health center. There are a ton of rules in the federal rules and laws that pertain to federally qualified health centers under certain sections of the code If you're really into that kind of stuff, look at Section 330. But the Health Resources and Services Administration says, if you're going to provide services to your community and get money from us, you have to meet the needs of people who are the most in need, who have the worst health outcomes, who really need to be ensured that they're going to get services and that you'll care for them even if they don't have any insurance and they can't afford to pay but $5 to get their care. So these are just some requirements here around being a federally qualified health center. They have an exhaustive list of 25 items that they monitor us on every 2.5 years. It's a very fun visit when they all come and conduct that type of audit. The requirements also have expanded a lot to deal with the quality or the outcomes, not just are you providing the service, but are you doing a good job at it? Are you getting good health outcomes for the people that you serve? And that they're culturally competent, linguistically, the service type culturally appropriate. Do you deal with diverse populations? There are increasing requirements that they monitor about that, but also they want to know who we're serving. So we share information on that. As I mentioned before, we have a board, if you will. It's called a council of our members who receive services, and we work with the county commissioners as the other side of the entity. It's called, in the federal government language, a co-applicant to become this public health center. A lot of health centers operate with what you probably have heard in these meetings, NGOs or non-governmental organizations, 501c3s, those kind of names. This is a public or government federally qualified health center. So we have to have, or get to have conversations between the county and our board of 10 or 11 folks as well. We are also working and continue to provide patient-centered and integrated care. There are both state and national criteria for what constitutes a patient-centered primary care home, meaning you have to have services that wrap around an individual, not like, go here and get your health care, go over there and get dental, and never do the two meet. It is to look at the patient as a whole person and to have a team of people that support that. So there's a medical assistant, a provider, a doctor or a nurse practitioner or PA. There are nurses on the team. There are behavioral health folks on the team. We have community health workers who work in the field to help people achieve their self-identified health outcomes as part of that team and identify their care plan for them. Also, because we are serving folks who may not have insurance and people who are lower income, we provide free and reduced prescription drugs for folks through another one. It's called 340B, but it's part of that section. So if you're looking at HRSA and that section 330 or 340, it's under that law that says, if you do that, we'll give you a reduced price for your clients, but you have to show us how you're meeting all these needs. And those folks can then get reduced price prescriptions when they show up at the pharmacy. And we reinvest funds and pay for people that don't have the ability to pay for their prescriptions also. Broad range of services, as I mentioned, that are integrated into our health centers or our department, and they are what are called scope of service. So for the federal government, we tell them every time, this is the service we're providing. We don't have pharmacy yet in scope of practice, so scope of service will be going to them with those updates. Oops, pushed the wrong thing there. This is an example of the health services. We're open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. 5 days a week, and we provide, like you would if you went to see your doctor, preventative care, women's health care, acute and chronic care, pediatrics, gerontology, immunizations. I'll jump around. We also have home visiting and behavioral health, and we have added substance use disorder treatment and medication-assisted treatment for folks who have an opioid use disorder or substance use disorder that want help in addressing that particular addiction. We have 24-hour call line, and again, working on pharmacies. So there's a picture of the entrance of one of our buildings there. Public health. So a lot of people don't know what public health is, or now think public health is COVID-19 all the time, every day. Thank goodness it's not anymore. But that is one of the pieces, communicable disease and investigations and community response and education and making sure people know what's going on. So that's one piece, but there's all these other services too, from things you may have heard of like home visiting and nutrition programs and health workers and nurses who do home visits for families. I mentioned environmental health. This is the range of things that we do with, we have 2 people who do inspections for all of the restaurants, food carts, all of those kinds of things to ensure that they are following state laws, rules, and regulations, and also do water systems and pools. Inspections is one part. We also address community events or like the fair when people have food carts and things out there. So just giving you a few examples of how that works. We are also what we call with our partners the backbone for Tillamook County Wellness. If you don't know what that is, I'll give a little description, but also we have a pretty extensive separate website for that. So you can just Google Tillamook County Wellness to get you some more information. That was formed in 2016. We have, I think, probably over 80 people now, but we have 50 partners who work on 4 action committees that are trying to look at and improve the overall wellness or well-being of the community. So when you see those health indicators like I feel healthy today, or I was active today, or I was depressed, those kind of questions that you sometimes get from the state, this is to address overall health and well-being of our community in these areas. Physical activity, workplace, health promotion, information, education. We should work with the last folks that were here around some education classes. I was like, ooh, we're doing health literacy. That'd be a great partnership. A huge part around access to care for people that struggle, that can't travel, that don't have the technology for our telemedicine visits, and then emergency response. We have 5 facilities. These are the clinical locations. A new building that we just completed, and it is almost done. We're waiting for the generator to arrive, which is our public and environmental health building now. And we have 2 administrative offices, one on 4th Street and one next to our dental clinic. So that's just a couple shots if you're not familiar with those. We also have a mobile clinic that can provide a range of services that we are within scope, and is set up with 2 clinical spaces that can, and dental, so that we can do remote dental and communicate with our dentist on site to help the hygienist complete the care that's needed. These are our providers that currently, these are all of our medical providers only in this picture, and not pictured is our volunteer part-time dermatologist, Dr. Westrom. We are starting into the section where we're talking about what's the difference between this budget and last budget, what are those key changes, but also describing what's the composition of the staff in our department. So FY 23-24, we had 62.9 staff, and in this budget for 24-25, we have 66.34. Our estimate for both administrative staff, managers, and supervisors is a ratio of about 17% to the staff in our department that they manage. Identifying by staff and others that we need to have a couple more managers to supervise these people to reduce the ratio from 10 to 13 per manager to a little less than that. Some staff changes that you may have noticed in the budget from FY 24 to the current is this your slide or mine still? You're the next 3. So we've added into our budget a new accounting manager position, a chief operations officer position, and a dental manager, and a new IT specialist to our team this year after discussion with staff.
We talked about that during yesterday, I think, the IT that would be
Yeah.
funded by yours, but would actually work in some part through our IS here, and there would be an exchange of knowledge, and also that part
Yeah.
should be pretty familiar with.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great situation for both departments and really helpful overall for the county and the workflow. So those are some changes in staff positions. Some of these have been in budgets before. We bring them back as we see a need and have the financial capacity to, or ability to fill it. So I'm going to hand it off to Irene to talk about the differences in our budget for last year and this year, and just to walk through some of those pieces, and I'll be back up to her for the next few slides.
So our budget is very similar to the prior year as far as the overall expense or overall budget. We're gonna increase our operating contingency by $2 million, and then we had some revenue changes mainly due to the drop in COVID funding because COVID's over, hopefully. So we had some American Rescue and some other stimulus money related to COVID. Those funds are running out. We're finalizing those grants, so that's a drop in revenue. Also on the Medicaid, managed care, and regular Medicaid, especially regular Medicaid, we had a drop because we had a huge increase the prior year budgeted for a Medicaid wrap payment, and that just means that we bill for our charges, we get paid so much, and then the state reviews and makes sure that we get paid our prospective payment, which is called a wrap payment. And we were about a year behind because we had some billing staff changes. So we got paid quite a bit of that in the last fiscal year. So we're up to date now. We send our request every month. We get our Medicaid wrap payment every month. So that's a major decrease related to that. Expenses, we had our increase of general fund dollars indirect, and it went from 680,000 up to about 703,000. And then differences in contracted services and a slight salary increase from last year to this year.
So staying about 17.
Yeah, so the changes was a decrease overall material services of 334,000, and that was related to contracted services. We had a decrease in the dental providers. Our contracted services for dental has gone down. And then we had vehicles. I didn't budget any vehicles this year.
Yay.
I'm not sure if the staff would agree with that. No more cars. And then capital outlay, that was some of the changes, but we are proposing that we're going to have an increase in our capital outlay. Hopefully it'll be either a new building or building improvements. And then, slight increases in office furnitures. With us expanding, we're spreading out and we're going into different areas. We have the new public health and environmental health building. Behavioral health moved into their old space. So, and some of our old spaces need updates. And so we have some increases related to some updates to the buildings that we currently have.
And changes in some of our leases, which have increased the cost with the pretty aggressive triple net lease. So that has changed things a little as well. A few things, some successes that we identified in this last year. When I mentioned the Health Resources and Services Administration, they have these 14 key metrics, and you have to 100% or exceed to get what is called MET. So even if you're 5% close. So of the 14 outcome measures, we have achieved 11 of those. We are close on the other that we have not, quote, met. The patient-centered primary care home standards for the state of Oregon had 3 tiers. They just added a tier 4, but we're right now at tier 3, so we'll be applying for that in the coming year. Our new building that I mentioned was completed. We have added community health workers to our workforce because it's really difficult sometimes to find nurses, and these folks can serve under the direction of a nurse and still get out those services in the community. And we had one of those first site visits I mentioned. So that was successful and has been completed.
Our first virtual one, I believe.
Yes, it was virtual. Yeah. I mentioned our federal grant, which is about $2.5 million now. And we also have a Rural Health Network grant that's from HRSA for convening our healthcare partners to talk about what can we do together to improve the health of our community and address the health priorities around access, specialty care that people would really like to see, and a few other things. Our public health grants typically are around 1.5. They can vary as we get funds in and out through the year. Behavioral health resources are primarily from patient-generated, as we call it, or insurance payments. But with the change in the law in Oregon under Measure 110, where they said we're going to limit what people get charged for, there were funding sources out there to help organizations like ours and Tillamook Family Counseling Center and other healthcare partners to address and try to meet the need for substance use treatment services. I mentioned those earlier. So we expanded those and had to meet some requirements around 24-hour access. So the minute somebody contacted us, we had to be able to say, we can respond to you in 24 or sooner, call them back quickly, make sure they get lined up in services, and get the treatment they need with a clinician, psychiatrist, etc. So those funds, I have a question mark, because you may have heard that there's some changes this last legislative session with House Bill 4002, which changes what is an offense that can be charged, and then the money may be distributed differently, but there's still an expectation we'll provide those services. We have grants on and off from other private funders, like OHS Unite Cancer Institute, and that's the health literacy project that I mentioned around, we serve about 25% of our patients self-identify as Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. And so we have interpreters on site and staff who are bilingual, bicultural, and the need to increase the knowledge and awareness of how to advocate for yourself in an appointment is super important. So health literacy is a focus. So it'll be in Spanish and English with staff who speak the same language and can do the outreach. Just an example of one of the projects. We have a number of goals, like everybody does every year, aggressive, but things that you need and want to do in the categories of personnel, outreach to address community needs, communications, finance, addressing our strategic plan goals, and finalizing the big plans that we have in place right now for communications plan, which will be done this spring, facilities plan, which is just wrapping up, our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, which will be done in the fall, and our strategic plan will also be done in the fall. So just to give you some examples of goals that we have going on besides the patient-driven and quality care improvements. So that's an overview of a lot of stuff condensed into a fairly small version. And I always mention, because Health Council members, we met yesterday with a number of them on our facilities committee, and they're like, we can't go to 2 meetings or 3 meetings in a week. So they're not here today, but they are integral along with the Board of County Commissioners in making this work and being able to meet the community needs. So I really appreciate their engagement and commitment to ensuring we have those services, and to the staff as well, who are committed to patient-first service delivery. So thank you for letting me share that. Happy to answer any questions, or Aaron to jump in as our liaison. And yeah.
Let's start with, and certainly we'll go around with lots of questions, but let's start with MJ, because she's new and she's also a professional retired nurse from California.
Nice.
So
this probably
she's probably got something.
Uh-oh,
to
no
add.
pressure.
Yes.
Yeah. What's Medi-Cal, right? Is that what it? Are you from? Did you say California? Or yeah, so Medi-Cal meaning like the equivalent of Medicare or OHP. Yeah.
I didn't know what did you want me to do.
Well, I thought you'd certainly have a medical question here.
She knows the language. She was like, okay. She was writing stuff. I'm like,
Well, I'll go ahead if you do it.
I think you're doing a great job.
Well,
Update my tetanus shots.
Yeah.
then we're good. So let me go first then to Commissioner Scar, since she's a liaison. She can probably add something to what we've seen here this morning.
There's not a whole lot to add. I think Marlene did a very complete job. Our Health and Human Services Department does so much in our community. They are constantly looking for what is the next emerging need and moving forward on making that happen. Dental was added 4 years ago?
Well,
Our new clinic was like
our new
6
clinic.
years ago.
6 years ago.
Really?
So they didn't used
I
to
was
do
gonna say
dental.
2 years ago.
COVID made everything it just happened.
True.
But that, and then behavioral health is recent in the last few years. So I think, it's an amazing department that's constantly looking toward what's the need. What can we add to make sure that people are served in our community? And the partnership between local healthcare providers is really good in Tillamook County. We work constantly with Adventist Health, with Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy, with Tillamook Family Counseling. There's just, that network grant that she talked about for the rural networks to bring our partners together, we already do that. So it's an additional opportunity to deepen that work. So I guess I would just say phenomenal department and lots of moving parts. The other piece I would say is Marlene really wears two hats. And I think that's something that we're going to be seeing in the succession planning that will be coming forward, because Marlene and some of her key staff will all be, they're all of retirement age, thinking about perhaps
They are.
retiring.
Doctors can retire earlier than other folks.
So in the next 3 to 5 years, I expect we will see some very significant leadership turnover in the Health and Human Services Department. And right now, Marlene is both the administrator of our public health side, which is a specific credential, as I understand it, that she had to get when she took that position. She is also the head of our federally qualified health center. So there's these two pieces that we've been able to merge into one job because of how this has grown together. But when Marlene leaves, there is certainly a possibility that it will take more than one person to be in the leadership roles for both of those pieces of this department. So some of the positions she talked about that were being added, the chief operations officer, there's a chief financial officer, there's some different pieces that are in the works to build the structure that's going to be required for this to be a seamless transition over the next 3 to 5 years as we, transition out very, very long-term qualified, skilled leadership that have grown this department. I mean, when you started, well, both of you started, it was nowhere near the department it is today. It was running in the red and had infusions from the general fund to keep it afloat. And so under the leadership of the folks you see in front of you, it has become a very successful, profitable enterprise. And in order to make sure that stays happening beyond their leadership, there's some infrastructure to be built. So, yeah.
Thanks.
I can remember the days when it was not so
Yeah.
great, and so to turn it around the way it is now is just, I think, been an awesome accomplishment. So, I had a question about the potential community pharmacy. I think it's awesome. A great idea. Is that intended to be a revenue generator or more just a service?
So initially, the plan in response to the community need was, oh wow, somebody needs to do something. We don't have the capacity, competency, capability to run it ourselves right now. So we are partnering with an entity that has experience doing that. They'll come in and provide an integrated pharmacy. It does not bring additional revenue to us. In the future, having investigated with other partners that operate pharmacies, it might be a way for us to be able to generate some revenue while also serving more folks that can't afford to pay for their prescription medications, because it takes out some of those, what we call middlemen or middle people that, she knows what I'm talking about, that get a big chunk of the revenue for the dispensing and ordering of medications. So short term, hopefully, we will be able to do that partnership, and then a little bit longer term, we'll build our own skill set, capacity, et cetera, to be able to operate a pharmacy.
Where does Tillamook County rank in regards to the health and wellness within the state? Is there a ranking of counties?
There is, but it's not one factor. So it's actually called Community Health Rankings. So you're on the right, and you can, again, Google that. There used to be 20, and I think there's up to 30 indicators of wellness now. So you can look to see where we rank in those. We have crept up in the rankings if you do an overall assessment of, what do we have, 36 counties, I think, in Oregon? We were 32, and most recently we were 21, and then we lost some ground at the end of COVID. So I haven't looked at the most recent one to see where we are. And there's certain areas where we do better and see this collective impact of people talking about being physically active, eating healthier. We do a lot of tracking of our social media and the users and how involved they are in the content. And people dive deep; they don't just click. So we think some of that has to do with the community partners work that are really out there and engaging folks. So community health rankings. I don't have that on here, but yeah, check it out. And there's probably a link on our webpage. We're adjoining the county with our 3 pages, our Spanish page, our wellness page, and our department page. So we're hoping we won't have outages and stuff. So if you're on there, look it up.
I will. I do have some budget questions.
Yes.
So if I'm looking at the budget correctly, it appears as though there is no operating contingency budgeted for this current year.
There's $2 million.
On the third page.
If you go to page 3, halfway down at the bottom, there's an operating contingency, 9990, that's what we're talking about here, right?
That's the
Yes,
prior.
the
That's
GL.
that's the prior year.
That's the prior year.
I need to move that over. That was me.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So
Yes.
that's supposed to be for the, okay, I had the same question.
So then,
That was on me.
it appears as though we have a $3 million beginning fund balance and a $0 ending fund balance. Is that correct?
I changed it to offset the contingency to have a $5 million carryover balance. That's what we have. It was a last minute
Can you
change.
say that a little louder?
So, we're upping our carryover balance from $3 to $5 million, and then the offset would be the operating contingency of $2 million.
I think that those two were on me because it was back and forth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it
were.
was very last minute. I forgot.
So
to-
there is so what is the unappropriated ending fund balance then?
Sounds like it's 3 million.
3 million,
Yeah.
similar to what it was last year.
So I'll just leave with this. Dr. Steffi is my personal physician, and I have a tendency to be a medical Luddite. But she is dogged in her persistence to track me down and get me to me for regularly scheduled appointments.
Good to hear.
So,
Like, does she personally reach out? Because I know there are some.
yeah.
Oh, you're one of them. Okay. You confess that in a public meeting.
She's good.
She is.
The other, the other thing I would add is that the health department, they talked about some facilities improvements, upgrades, possibly a building purchase related to the pharmacy. But one of the additional conversations that we have been having is just in the long term, there really would make sense to build one integrated large facility for all of the services that they currently have that are scattered around a sort of a small part of town. At least they're all within a couple of blocks of each other, but there is not a cohesive connected campus for this. And it really would make sense in the long term to come up with a location for a connected, cohesive campus. And I think as we've been talking about bonding and various things, what might be in the future related to that, I think there is a conversation happening around facilities that that may lead to a request to do some bonding in the future and build an actual new clinic.
Yeah, we engaged as part of the county's process, which you're probably aware of, around looking at I'm going to say well-being because I'm in healthcare, but of the status of the shape of current buildings. So we looked at all that, and then as part of it, we engaged in a contract to project out what we need and maybe not be in what was originally a house with those, when you're in there, the hallways are not the standard medical hallways and the rooms aren't quite up to what the current best practice is for exam rooms and the like. So we have a facilities plan and we have both like some growth options, but also a larger facility. So we have some of those things already drafted. We'll be keeping an eye out as well for if there are any upcoming capital improvement grants with HRSA which we used, one, to assist with the construction and improvement of our public health and environmental health space next door. Usually doesn't fund everything, but any little bit helps.
There's also some, as I remember, some are owned, some are leased, correct? Some of your.
Correct.
And so, you know, with a lease payment, you have a roof over your head, but the money's gone. And, you know, the county's not going anywhere, so long-term, it would make sense to have a medical facility that can basically do it all. Last question I have is, I know when I was on the hospital board for a number of years and Commissioner Bell worked there, it was becoming more and more difficult to find medical doctors and PAs and others that are medically trained. How much trouble are you having now to get those people? And I'm thinking here, not too long ago, there was not an emergency physician at the hospital who lived in Tillamook County. They were all coming down, staying for 48 hours, going home, and somebody else comes in.
Yeah, so I'm like looking for wood to. So our provider retention is strong with the staff who have been there for 5+ years. The turnover used to be 5 to 7, and with the folks you're talking about, 2 years, you know, moving around. That's probably true in other states as well. And it is hard to recruit. I'm anticipating, again, with our succession plan, knowing some physicians who are retiring, we're already doing our outreach for those. Medical director took us 4 years to get a permanent medical director when we were looking where, and Dr. Steffi is our medical director, as well as a primary care physician. So it's not called mid-level providers anymore, advanced practice providers or advanced practice clinicians. Those are a little easier, and I get calls almost every week for people that, you know, would like to work with a community health center. Of course, there's a bunch of terms about that, but one of the advantages is as federally qualified health centers, we can provide loan repayment for clinicians. So if they will agree to work with our population that's underserved, and we're in a medically underserved area, there's criteria for that, again, in those rules, they can get, in the past it was up to $25,000 a year to pay off their student loan debt. It has gone to $30,000, and sometimes in limited duration it's $50,000 a year. So and it's tax-free. So that's like basically for them getting, if it's 50, like getting $100,000 basically towards your student loan debt. So in rural areas, the challenge is getting people to come, so that helps. But the retention is based on the workload and the stress of the workload. So ER physicians are the hardest. Specialty internal medicine, it's really hard to get them here. Family practice primary care, we have to offset. We cannot say you will see 30 patients a day, nor does it meet our model. So federally qualified health center average patient per day is 14 or 15 versus 25 elsewhere. So work-life balance, type of work you do, mission and purpose of who you want to work with makes a difference in recruitment. Still hard. I am concerned, like, how are we going to fill these? If it's 3 years out, we better start now. If we're going to have some nurse, not mid-level, expanded practice folks, we're going to need to recruit those now as well.
I just want to say that this is an excellent, well-run organization and something that we can just be really proud of. And over the years, I've observed the growth of the organization in response specifically to community needs, which is what Commissioner Scar was talking about, the addition of mental health providers, the addition of dental care, the addition of medication-assisted treatment for addiction disorders. And you're doing dramatically good work very efficiently. And I appreciate that so much. I was in Board of Commissioners budget hearing maybe 15 years ago, I don't remember exactly, but when I was working for the Headlight Herald, when the health department came in and they were $500,000 short. And it was in that meeting that the Board of Commissioners kind of kicked the health department out and said, you need to sink or swim. And so through Marlene's leadership and the Affordable Care Act, you're swimming, you're really just doing such a remarkable, extraordinary job. And not only in all of, you do so much, and you obviously had to rush through those things or we could be here all day. But like the things that you're doing, they were heroic in COVID. I mean, truly amazing work through COVID. And their marketing campaign is excellent. Their community communications are excellent. There's a whole arm of emergency preparedness and response that is so important. So there's just amazing things that you're doing and doing so well. That our community is so fortunate to have you doing this work, and truly. And also we were in a meeting recently where we were talking about how as the services have expanded, the leadership who are holding them up has not expanded. And so we need to add to that body of people to do the work in order to prevent burnout and prepare for the eventual succession plan. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to mislead, because all the services we provide, we are so very proud of. But what you just mentioned is like, it's a heavy load for folks, and we don't want to burn them out. We have, internal operational issues, things that ride on that, the supervisory ratio, the communications when you don't have a few people, like Marlene's editing the ad that's going in the newspaper at 7 p.m. Probably not the best use of resources. So figuring out some of those pieces, that's kind of our challenge, or focus, I should say, in the next year, communications and that capacity building. So I really appreciate the community that we work with and how responsive they are as well, and the support. And we're going to focus on supporting some of that internal stuff in this next year.
Any last minute questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's take our lunch break and we'll come back at the scheduled, maybe it'll end up being 5 or 10 minutes off, but we'll have your lunch, and I believe it's in the back of the room, and so we're good.
This is way nicer than mine.
Oopsie, where'd that go? Yeah. Sorry, I had to, while you're here, before you go.
Jack, I didn't know what you wanted to say.
Oh, I would just,
You should have given me a cue card.
well,
I need
I
a
did-
prompter,
no,
a
no.
teleprompter.
I just thought you'd have a question, being a nurse talking to the health department.
No, they're, I could tell,
They know what they're doing.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.